The first thing on the agenda is if everybody would please stand. And I'm going to take a little liberty here today. This is the 75th anniversary of D-Day. And so I think it would be appropriate to have a moment of silence for all those people that lost their lives and helped save the democracy. So if everybody would just bow their head for a moment, and then we'll get to the invocation. Okay, thank you. We have with us today the pastor, Wendell Thompson from the Glory Cloud Ministries. Please.
Thank you, Father, for your presence being in here. Bless this meeting, Lord God, with your divine direction of your Spirit. I ask you, Father, to pour out your Spirit on everyone that's here, Lord, that they will have the right steps, the right decisions, and your divine direction in everything they are asking and doing and seeking your kingdom for, Lord. I ask you, Lord, for your great peace and your joy and your love to come upon everyone here, Father, in a great, great way, Lord. Ask you, Lord, for your direction, for your peace, and for your steps, Father. In Jesus' name. We all said amen,
Amen.
and amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's also Priscilla's birthday.
It is.
No. He was going to.
What do you expect?
Okay, one item of important business also is that today is Priscilla's birthday, so I hope everybody's brought presents, balloons, cakes.
Are you singing?
Well, I should say that, never mind.
No, don't say that. She did not mean that.
She's requested that we do not sing, given our
Thank you.
inability to carry a tune. Okay, we do have a 9 o'clock time certain, but prior to that, I think Sherry wanted to cover a quick subject on the Coquina Beach situation with the trees and the construction out there.
Thank you. Apologize to the land use folks for letting me slip in, but we have a urgent matter we need to address the board on. As you know, we're reviewing the project of the Coquina drainage. We have received a recent update on some additional trees we may need to remove, but we don't have all of those details. I'm here this morning to ask the board if we can move forward with removing 6 trees. We're mobilized, the project's underway. In the south end of that project, we have Woodruff & Sons, our contractor there. We have all the materials there. Originally, in the original plan, there were 30 trees in that area to be removed. We're just asking for 6 at this moment, and then that we come back to you with a full and complete report with maps and locations of all of the proposed additional trees at our June 18th meeting, so we can have the engineers and other folks there, as well as the folks that are concerned about the tree removal. The 6 trees in question are in the path of the next area of the stormwater drainage that we need to put in. By doing this, we won't have to demobilize or move materials. That would cost us a great deal, and it would require us to move some things out in lieu of the June 18th meeting. So that is the information I have right now. I'm very willing to go make a call to the mayor based upon whatever decision you come up with this morning and explain to him that this is just a temporary need that we need to do to be able to make a little further progress.
Okay, thank you, Sherry. A couple of, I think, some questions. Commissioner Trace?
Do we need an actual motion on this?
Please.
All right, I move that we remove only the 6 trees until the June 18th meeting, so we do not lose any money.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Commissioner Servia?
Yes, thanks, Sherry. Just a question about
Yes.
those 6 trees, just to confirm, they're all located in the parking lot?
Yes.
And not along the beach,
Correct.
right? Yes.
Correct,
thank
and
you.
I did confirm they are 6 Australian pines.
Thank you.
That is the species. We've made a count. There are 991 Australian pines out at that location, a total of over 1,500 trees that we've mapped on our GIS right now. And we're talking about 6 that are actually in the area of where the storm pipe needs to be continued.
Commissioner Whitmore.
Just real quick, what's this going to cost us financially since we've delayed it? And also, it's always touchy because of the turtle season.
Well, right now, that's going to be part of your report on June 18th. Right now, the contractors has agreed to hold weekly. We've been communicating with them weekly, so we're into our second week of the hold. If we can allow them to proceed with just those 6, we'll be able to finish that small portion, and it will not create a delay until after your June 18th meeting. At that meeting, though, we will have facts and figures on the impact of any delay, both in construction cost, in demobilization, and also in completion, which is your bigger concern for the season. We had planned the project around being able to work with turtle season and the January, February timeframe of 2020. So we're going to have a timeline for you on that, and all those factors will weigh into what kind of decision you might make on June 18th.
We all received an email from the mayor that wanted to redesign it, asked you to change it. That's not, would that cost us?
I would be communicating to the mayor that would be highly unlikely we would be able to do a complete redesign of that particular park.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and support the motion. However, I think we do need to have a full picture of what is proposed. I'm not sure that everyone has had an opportunity to see the entire picture of how this is going to be. And, there's a lot of people that are very concerned because, you get very invested and, people love that beach. Yeah. And so we do need to have a full picture, I think. So the 6 trees is okay, but,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not committing at all to what will happen because it just needs a lot more input, I think.
Yeah, and we want to have a full report, both maps and cost and impacts for both. I'd like to go out and let them know out there as well what we would be proposing so that everyone can be prepared. And I think that additional days next week will give us an opportunity to do that and get that back to you prior to our briefings on the 17th.
And I will let you know because I was concerned about this. I did ask Mickey to do some research to look at the contract. He pulled the contract just to see what the situation was, so you might want to get with him. I know he's done that, so I don't want you to have to recreate that wheel.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Bellamy.
Yes, are we looking at recycling the Australian pine trees when we pull them up?
Chipping them?
You mean using the wood from the trees for some? We'll take a look at that and
No.
see how that works. We
Okay, and I'll
can
speak
add
to
that
you
as
about
one.
it because when I was out, I spoke to, I think it was Ed Childs, and there's some recycling with Australian pine trees, so maybe an opportunity to take lemons and make lemonade.
Good idea.
Okay.
Okay, seeing nobody else on the board, I will now open this up to public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to come down and discuss this at this point? Seeing nobody from the public, we will close public comment. We have a motion by Commissioner Trace, seconded by Commissioner Baugh. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0.
Sorry to interrupt your meeting. I'll go contact the mayor and just explain this is just a very short-term need. Thank you.
We will look forward to the June 19th meeting. 18th. Maybe we'll do it on the 19th. Okay, at this point, I will turn the meeting, adjourn our meeting and open up, recess this meeting and open up the Port Authority meeting. Chairman Baugh is in charge of that, I believe.
Good morning, all. Welcome to the Manatee Port Authority
meeting. We'll go ahead and call it to order. First things first, is there anyone from the public that would like to come forward and have 3 minutes just to speak on the port, strictly on the port? All right, not seeing anyone, we'll close public comment. Carlos, good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Thank you again for allowing us to come at this point in today's meeting. We have a few housekeeping items, and we need your approval on them. We have both a brief consent agenda and 3 items on the regular agenda. The first being for the Public Transportation Grant Agreement for Berth 4 extension. What's happening is that the port is growing, as you know, significantly larger. We need to expand the port to accommodate that, and our partners from FDOT have additionally come up with more funds to be able to help us with that. So we'll have you consider this item for approval based upon this additional money from FDOT. We also have Mr. Keith Robbins here to be able to supplement with any additional information about how this works.
Keith, do you want to come up? Is there anything that you would like to add, sir? Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners. This grant is for the rehab and reconstruction of Berth 4 that will include extending it to a length to be determined, but the scope allows for some quite extensive reconstruction work on that berth to allow the port to use both berths 4 and 5 for 2 vessels simultaneously in the future. So this is all part of the larger growth of the port plan for Carlos.
Keith, would you give the clerk your full name, please?
Keith Robbins, FDOT District 1, Florida Seaport Coordinator.
Thank you.
I move to
Commissioners.
adopt Resolution PA 1915.
We have a motion to adopt by Commissioner Trace, a second by Commissioner Servia. We'll go ahead. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this matter? Not seeing anyone, we'll go ahead. All in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is approved unanimously, 7-0. All right, Carlos.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, did I hear? Is there a question?
No.
Okay. Item number 2 is a similar item to number 1. It's, again, regarding the expansion of the container yard and additional funds to do so. Really, a berth is essentially for a port in comparison to an airport, a runway. So we're making our berths longer, therefore allowing, like Keith said, for more capacity. And the terminal side, the air terminal side, is really our container yard. So we want to make that match the expansion of the berth. So FDOT has also been able to assist in providing additional funding for this expansion that was already being planned, but now we'll be able to make it bigger because really our growth in containers is really surpassing our ability to handle them comfortably.
I might add that I was out at the port yesterday for a meeting with Carlos and Dave Sanford, and I can tell you, it's amazing now when you go out there, the difference in 6 years when I first, or 7 years when I first got elected, and what it's like today. It's amazing at the growth that we're seeing.
I move to adopt the resolution.
Second. Okay. We have a motion to approve from Misty Servia and a second by, I believe it was Betsy Benak. Anyone from the public like to come forward? Not seeing anyone. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, Carlos, we're on a roll, 7-0.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item number 3 is the request to approve the ranking as we have it for berth extension engineering services. We have essentially needed to go out and identify firms that would be able to help us with a seagrass mitigation study, what's going to be needed in order to be able to build a berth or expand berth 4. And we would request that you consider the approval of the ranking of these so we can then go and negotiate with the first ranked firm. We'll be bringing back to you on the 20th, on the last meeting in June, the official negotiations position or the request for approval of the first ranked firm. And so we will do that on the 20th. So today, all you're doing is approving the ranking as we have it.
I move to approve the recommended motion.
Second.
We have a motion to approve by Commissioner Whitmore, a second by, I'm going to go with Commissioner Bellamy. Anyone from the public like to come forward? Not seeing anyone. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. It's approved unanimously. All right, next we'll go to consent agenda. Carlos?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners. This is pretty much a little housekeeping on it. The only item that's kind of interesting is the mutual aid agreement, and much in the seafarer or maritime tradition, we have an agreement to help other ports in time of need, them to us and us to them. So this is, I think, a good will and I think an example of how cooperative the seaport system is, and FDOT being responsible for all the seaports in Florida. I think also supports this kind of initiative where it's happened in the Panhandle a year and a half ago. A couple of the ports are significantly affected. They're back up, but all the ports essentially went to their assistance. This kind of formalizes the process to moving forward.
Any questions?
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Trace, second by Commissioner Benak. Anyone from the public like to come forward? Not seeing anyone. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's approved unanimously. Today's a good day for the port.
Thank you.
Carlos, there's someone in the audience, too, I think you might want to introduce to the board.
Okay,
to the Port
I asked that
Authority.
very question, but it was suggested perhaps, but we can do it now and then,
Yes,
that we
absolutely.
wait until the 20th, when your meeting is, so. Then, Virginia, come up, please, and introduce Caitlin.
Caitlin, I'm sorry, but, you're in our world now, so, it's part of the game here.
Let me first introduce Virginia Zimmerman, who is our corporate communications and PIO for the port, as you all know her by now. And it happened that her assistant retired about 2-3 weeks ago. We went out for a search, and we found a perfect candidate, and we're going to have Virginia introduce Caitlin Mullen today.
Perfect.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I would like to introduce the new Communications and Marketing Assistant for the Port, Caitlin Mullen. She actually started yesterday, so it's all very new. She's just started, touring the port and everything. So maybe you want to say a few words.
Good morning.
Morning. Morning.
My name is Caitlin Mullen, and I'm very excited to be a part of the Port Manatee. I originally came from Kansas and worked in journalism with Channel 10 for about a year and a half, and then started my own social media marketing business and looking to branch out, and now I'm excited to be a part of Port Manatee.
Welcome.
Caitlin, welcome to the family.
Welcome.
Good luck.
Thank you.
I couldn't wait until the 20th, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Carlos, thank you, and Keith, as always. It's great to have you here. Commissioner Whitmore.
Carlos, what is our reserves right now?
Our reserves right now, although I hate to say it in public, are very
all right. I
healthy,
mean, it's
very
public.
healthy. However, I'm not the clerk. I'm not the CFO of the port. So with some, let's say, proportion, I have been informed, they are around 18,
Good,
18.7 million,
good.
minus the 4, of course, that we usually use as a cushion, based upon the guidelines of the clerk's office. So they're rather, well, they're a record high.
Yeah, totally. And
Yes,
we
ma'am.
need that because we're matching these grants. So we can use that money, so we have, because before if in the old days, we actually had to borrow, I think. Yes, we had to
Correct.
borrow to match the grants, so that makes us financially stable. And then, you never know what's gonna happen. This is a fluid business, so I'm glad we finally got there, because I remember having to borrow money to match a grant. So congratulations, good job, and I
Thank you.
want to say it's because of your team that you've put together all these years, and all the hard work out there. Thank you.
We've been saving our pennies.
Yep.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to DOT and our staff for working closely with DOT, being aware, and you're helping us be aware of when these funds are available so that we can take advantage of it, and that's really important. So we appreciate you guys being on top of this and moving us forward so the port can stay in this great financial shape. And good job, Vanessa.
Thank you, thank you. Although truly, it's staff. Any other comments, Commissioners? Commissioner Johnson?
Just, make, just a quick comment. I talked to Carlos in reference to the reserves that, we continue to make very good cash flow out at the port right now, and all this money's not going out immediately. You know, this is going to be a 2 or 3 year project, so consequently, as this money goes out, we're refurbishing it with new money that's coming in. So, you know, we're not going to sit there and drain the bank with this stuff. So I think that's really important to know that, you know, this is not, you know, this is money that's going to continue to be replenished as we go along. And again, Keith, we really appreciate all that you and FDOT does to help the port continue to succeed like it has been.
And not property taxes.
And that is correct. In fact, we did an informal cash flow analysis, and there'll be minimal impact to the reserves based upon, as Commissioner Johnson mentioned, the velocity at which we're able to retain the net cash flow.
Any other comments, commissioners? All right, thank you. Carlos, I think it stands to reason, you know, staff and yourself and FDOT make a great team. The port is growing like never before. We have many more things coming that I'm very excited about, and I think that the port has truly made a stance, and it's a good, strong one. And it's a great economic engine for Manatee County and the surrounding counties, not just Manatee. So with that, I'm just very proud to work with all of you. Jennifer, that includes you. You know, you just work as a great family and a great team. So just wanted you to know. And Keith, you're part of that, obviously. I think you're at the port more than I am. I love it. So, anything else, Carlos?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Well, with that being said, we'll go ahead and adjourn the Port Authority meeting. And Commissioner Johnson, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Give the staff a few minutes to get set up.
Is it going to be bad? No. I don't think so.
Find my agenda.
Just turned over. Something like that. Yeah.
Oh, you better get on it.
Look at Clark. Wow. Ooh. Wait a minute. That wasn't enough. He's not turning red yet. Try again.
Okay. Next up, I think, would be if there's any requests from commissioners to pull any consent agenda items.
I don't think.
Nope. See none there. At this point, we'll open it up for citizens' comments for future agenda items. Are there any citizens that would like to come up and discuss any future agenda items?
Changes to the agenda. Changes to the agenda.
Oh, yeah. Okay, seeing nobody coming up for future agenda items. Next would be, I think, Margaret, as to whether there are any changes to the agenda at this point.
Excuse me, good morning. Margaret Tusing with Building and Development Services, and there are changes to the agenda this morning. The update memo has for item number 5, which is a final plat, Polo Run Phase 2A and 2B, there's additional language that needed to be added to item number 11 to read as follows. Authorize the county administrator to accept surety bond for performance of required private improvements, letter of credit number FGAC 19173, subphases A and B, Fidelity Guarantee and Acceptance Corporation for $99,316.96. Additional changes that are required for this final plat are on items 5 through 10, which is deleting the word execute for the county administrators, only in acceptance of the agreements, or of the bonds, rather. Item number 8 is PDR 1810P, Imperial Lakes. We originally had it on the agenda that it was going to be continued until August 22nd, 2019. That has, the applicant advised us after the agenda went out that they would like to go to the September 5th, 2019 meeting.
Good.
So your motion is changing. Item number 9, PDMU 1823P, Morgan's Glen. There's a revised stipulation, item number D2, in strike-through underline format that is attached to the memo. Item number 11, PA 1809, Ordinance 1912, which is the Sarah Bay Small-Scale Map Amendment. There was a public comment letter that was received after the agenda was published, and that's attached to the update memo. And those are all of the changes to the agenda this morning.
Thank you, Margaret. So at this point, I think we'll go to the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve with the change on number 5 being
Second.
included.
We have a motion and a second. I think we've already opened that up to public comment, so all those in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Consent agenda is approved 7-0. We will now go on to number 8, which is the Imperial Lakes Residential.
I move that we move this to whatever the September date, September 5th.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a motion from Commissioner Trey, second by Commissioner Servia, to continue this to the September 5th. Is that what it is?
Yes.
September 5th date. At this point, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to discuss the continuation of this Imperial Lakes project? Seeing nobody from the public, I will close public comment. All those in favor of continuing it, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to number 9. Again, this is presentations are scheduled. So this is Morgan's Glen Moccasin Wallow Associates LLC. Margaret, you'll read
I will
this
read
in.
it, Chair. Swear in.
Oh, you just swear in everybody who hopes to testify.
Swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representations which you're about to present to the board will be truthful and accurate.
I do.
You guys look awesome.
All right, good morning again, Margaret Tusing with Building and Development Services. This is item number 9 on the agenda. It's PDMU 1823P, Morgan's Glen. It is a quasi-judicial hearing, and Dorothy Rainey is the planner. This is a preliminary site plan for 138.18 acres that will include 380 single-family detached and attached units and up to 175,329 square feet of non-residential uses. It is generally located 2/3 of a mile west of US 301 between Moccasin Wallow Road and Erie Road in Parish. The property is currently zoned Planned Development Mixed Use North Central Overlay, and it will be retaining that designation. This is also approving a schedule of uses as voluntarily proffered by the applicant and is attached to your ordinance as Exhibit B. The applicant's representative, as well as Ms. Rainey, are here for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. At this point, I will ask whether there's been any ex parte communication on behalf of the board members.
To be fair, since we've learned in ethics, we have to say, I drive by this piece of property a lot. Can't say that I communicate with it, but I do drive by it.
When you're driving by?
Well, I actually say this used to be one of the nicest groves I've ever seen, and greening has just screwed it up. But I don't think that has anything to do with today's problem.
Okay. At this point, we'll move on to the applicant's presentation. Mr. Neal.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm Pat Neal, 8141 Lakewood Main Street, Lakewood Ranch. I have been sworn. One of my goals today is to introduce Neal Land and Neighborhoods and a new neighborhood at North River Ranch. As you know, my dad and I started building it in Longboat Key in 1968, and I began business full-time in 1970 and have now built in Manatee County 49 years. One of the happiest days of my life is when John Neal joined our company in 2004. We're partners in our new business, which is called Neal Land and Neighborhoods, and this is the second of our presentations to you as Neal Land and Neighborhoods. John and I will build homes and home sites for public builders and private builders and Neal communities at North River Ranch and other properties in Manatee and elsewhere. We have with us again today Tom Panaseni, our area's most experienced builder of master plan communities. In his work with Arvida and Newland, he built Fishhawk Ranch, which I think may be the most famous and best executed development in our region, and also most recently Bexley Ranch in Pasco County, which is gorgeous, full of new ideas, and something that we want to introduce to Manatee County. Our discussion today will be on a new section of North River Ranch, the third section that we've had before you. As I now say continually, our intent is to make Parrish, Commissioner Trace, the new center of the universe, but we intend to make it a place that's gorgeous, preserves the natural environment, preserves the historical environment, and brings new people and new economic vitality to our region. We are partners with the Melees, I would say, one of our region's most famous citrus developers. They have a 25-year-old citrus grove that used to be verdant and healthy. It now, like all the groves, has greening. We have 55% of our orange product that goes to Tropicana from Brazil, and the citrus industry in Florida is on its way out. We intend to take those groves and make them into a beautiful community next to the new elementary school and provide housing satisfactory for families with children in our new approach at Neal, which is family life. We also will have a commercial component and the other things necessary to make sure that we have the full and complete elements of a master plan community. I think I said that we're partners with the Melees in this project. They have established long-term working relationship with Manatee County and credibility with Manatee County, and I believe with you, Mesty, have been at work with you for many years. We've enjoyed our partnership with them, and they will be our partners throughout the project. Katie will explain the project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Pat. Commissioners, I'm Katie Labar with Stantec, representing Neal Land and Neighborhoods, and I have been sworn. The project we have before you today is a fully entitled, fully approved project, Morgan's Glen. It's what we have before you for review is a reimagined land plan based on changes in the market that we believe will be viable and will contribute to the broader community of North River Ranch. The site is located just west of US 301, south of Moccasin Wallow Road, and north of Erie Road in Parrish. It's 138.18 acres, and we request it's zoned plan development mixed use. It's in the UF3 future land use category with the North Central Overlay District. South of the villages of Amazon South, east of Copperstone, and the Barbara Harvey Elementary School. The site is bisected by Fort Hamer Road, which is currently under construction, and existing adjacent development was certainly considered when we contemplated this site design. As you can see, to the east of the property, we have several large residential properties. To the west is the Copperstone neighborhood with the townhome product. For the residential development, the preliminary site plan provides 50-foot roadway buffers and 20-foot perimeter buffers, consistent with the requirements of the North Central Overlay, along the east and west property lines. Specific approval is requested for roadway buffers that are 25 feet along the commercial areas to provide for visibility to those commercial areas. We also request specific approval for buffer reductions along the Buffalo Canal from 20 feet to 10 feet to provide for access for maintenance, drainage maintenance. But in that area, the landscaping that will be provided will be consistent with the requirements of the NCO. So we're not asking for a reduction in the amount of plants that would be planted, just the area that they would be planted in. Finally, specific approval is requested for a front yard setback reduction from 25 feet to 23 feet. This is something that's pretty consistent. We've seen it in a lot of plan development projects. It's consistent with the Villages of Amazon and Havel Farms, which were recently approved. From the standpoint of site access, this site plan is in full compliance with the requirements of the Land Development Code. We have one residential access point on Moccasin Wallow Road, but the majority of the neighborhoods will take access to Fort Hamer Road, as you can see. The preliminary site plan contemplates approximately 1.2 acres of recreational open space with 2 amenity areas on either side of Fort Hamer Road. And the site plan provides approximately 35% open space, while 25% is required for residential and 20% for commercial. This site has no wetlands and as Pat indicated, continues to be used for agricultural purposes. Since Planning Commission, we've worked diligently with staff to address several concerns that were raised at that hearing. The ordinance that you have before you for consideration today includes 2 stipulations that have been added since Planning Commission. Stipulation A12 is intended to address the construction of an access point that's located just west of our site, which will provide bus access for Barbara Harvey Elementary School. As you can imagine, that access needs to be constructed as soon as possible because school will begin in August. And so we just wanted to clarify, that was a stipulation that we requested, and it's really intended to just clarify process so that that can happen sooner rather than later. The second stipulation that's been added is stipulation D2. That's one that we've worked very, very closely with your public works staff on to address the relocation of an existing reclaimed water main that needs to be taken from where it currently lies and moved into the right-of-way of Fort Hamer Road. And since we've been working with the county on the construction of Fort Hamer Road, we're able to accomplish that in pretty short order. And so this stipulation just helps memorialize the process and ensure that we're going to continue to work with staff to ensure that that happens during the course of development. So those are the 2 additional stipulations that we want to cover. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Joel Christian with Eco Consultants, who will review the environmental elements of this project.
Wearing glasses now. Getting older.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not the only one in that here, right?
Good point.
What did he say? I know.
Betsy doesn't wear glasses.
Which way am I going here? Oh, there we are.
Get it.
My name is Joel Christian. I'm a senior scientist with Eco Consultants in Palmetto. I've been sworn. I'm the environmental consultant for the project, and just like to go over some of the environmental aspects of the project or lack thereof. It's a pretty barren site at the time. Again, it used to be former groves. A lot of it has already been disturbed. There's no jurisdictional wetlands within the property boundaries. There are no listed species that we're aware of. We've done some extensive transects out here. That's what the map on the screen shows you, kind of the pedestrian and vehicle transects we've done throughout the property. No gopher tortoise out here, no bald eagle nest within the regulatory zone. Again, we typically do a preliminary evaluation at this stage, and then prior to commencement of construction, prior to FSP, we'll do an updated study. Should there be any evidence of habitat or evidence of gopher tortoises, we will do a 100% survey, as is required by the state. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of environmental issues going on with this project. We've done the permitting for Fort Hamer Road as it goes through the property. So we've gone to construction level detail with those evaluations, and there's been no comments from Fish and Wildlife or U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. So that's really all I have at this time. If you have any questions, I'll be available for questions. But at this point, I'm going to pass it on over to John Neal with Neal Lands and Neighborhoods.
Thank you. Thank you for that great introduction.
Hello, Commissioners. Good morning. My name is John Neal, 8141 Lakewood, Main Street. The planning details and the environmental details which Katie and Joel just discussed are important. We've worked hard with your staff, and we appreciate their support in this project. However, as the developer of North River Ranch and of Morgan's Glen, the North County's first master planned community, I'd like to emphasize separately some of the livability features which we're going to bring to this master plan subdivision. It's the benefit of the master plan that lets you think in advance about how future residents and existing residents in this area will utilize these services. As you can see from the slide on the overhead, we have a bunch of new schools, and we've been talking a lot about that. Pat and I recently visited the schools. They look fantastic. There's a brand new elementary school opening in August, the Barbara Harvey Elementary School. The new high school also will be opening in August. And Commissioner Whitmore, there's a new State College of Florida campus, and we understand that the first students in this campus will be attending the high school, actually, but they'll be nursing students
That's
who
where I
will
went.
who will be moving from the high school directly into the college campus, which should be open in about 3 years. We think that's pretty exciting potential for the parish area. You also see that we have a shopping center area which is included. It should have a daycare, a grocery, some convenient gas, restaurants, and shops. Besides the potential for new jobs which will benefit not only the future residents and teachers and students in this community, the current residents in this area actually have to drive a longer amount of road distance down 301 to reach these same type of services. So bringing the services into this community where there's need or represented need currently and future need will actually open up trips and lessen the trips on the road. Importantly, and what I'd really like to highlight is that the home sites within Morgan's Glen are designed and intended so that the people in this community can walk along the sidewalks or along the Avid Trail system, which is a hallmark of, which will be a hallmark of the North River Ranch community, or even along a 10-foot wide paved multi-use trail, which is something that we're seeing a lot in Sarasota County. I brought a picture here so I can show you the scale. I don't know if you can click on that.
Oh, where's that?
This big.
Oh, my God.
Okay. So I just wanted to show you the
That's
scale of that.
perfect. Is that Pat?
Okay.
I want to see a golf cart.
It's my, as an aside, it's my personal hope that our multi-use trail will one day connect with a rails to trails system or walking path, which I hope, Commissioner Trace, will be a great destination amenity for the village, historic village of Parrish in the near future.
That's funny.
We suspect that buyers in this proposed community will be working families primarily from Manatee County, but also from Sarasota, Hillsborough, Pinellas, and from the city of St. Pete, as people in those communities recognize all the great benefits of Morgan's Glen, North River Ranch, and Manatee County have to offer them. Given the great features of Morgan's Glen, I ask that you please recognize the great location and vision we have for this community, that you acknowledge your staff's supportive recommendation, and that you support the new community with your vote today. Thank you very much for your time. I'll leave this up here just so y'all can.
I bet they were the only guys in Parrish with a tie on that day.
Just laying on a sidewalk.
Everybody sat up real straight when we walked by, so.
Well, considering we don't know what a sidewalk is, we'll probably have people laying in them all the time. They go, them guys from town lay in them.
For the record, Frank Domingo with Stantec, and I have been sworn, and I'd like to start out, how do you follow that?
You better have some good pictures.
If you can, if you can switch back over. Thank you. What I'm here to do is address some of the transportation and accessibility issues for bicycle and pedestrians. Starting off with what we're asking for is a development that generates basically the same or less trips that we already have in an approved certificate of level of service. If we have to go, if we do go over it, we will have to come back through the administrative process to address it. When what has happened since the CLS was originally first issued, a lot has happened. You have a new bridge, Fort Hamer Bridge. You've had improvements on US 301.
Can you continue going?
They need more time.
I need more time. Is that okay?
How much more time do you think you'll?
10 minutes?
We'll go with 5 minutes unless I get questions.
Okay.
Okay. So a lot has been done. You have the new bridge, improvements on US 301. You have segments of Fort Hamer Road under construction, currently under construction, or planned to be in construction within a year. So there's a significant amount of network being constructed around this area. Just as an example, this isn't going to be nearly as fabulous as John's photo, but just to show you the typical section for pretty much all of Fort Hamer Road, you've got two outside lanes with a wide median for future additional future 2 lanes, 7-foot bike lanes, and a 10-foot sidewalk on one side, as clearly demonstrated, and 5-foot sidewalks on the east side. One of the things that was raised, or an issue that was raised at the Planning Commission was they just wanted to make sure we had good access to schools. And I'm here to tell you that we're glad you asked that question. Because we have safe routes to schools planned and provided already, and you will see a significant amount of sidewalk being constructed. In fact, 17,500 feet of sidewalk connecting the neighborhoods to the schools on all the major roads. We also have all the sidewalks within the neighborhoods to provide basically from the house, the doorstep of the house to the doorstep of the school. We also have 3 new traffic signals to allow safe crossing at 115th and Moccasin Wallow, Fort Hamer Road in Moccasin Wallow, and Fort Hamer Road in Erie. Those are actually being awarded, and we are going to have a temporary signals up to the 2 schools at the 2 main entrances. So just to demonstrate the routes for sidewalks to schools, this is down just north of 115th. You're going to, the kids will be able to get on the sidewalk, which is on both sides, cross at a light, get down to the school entrance, and if they're coming in from the Fort Hamer side of it, north of the Moccasin Wallow Road, you start over in north, you're coming across on at the signal, and then you are going to be able to walk across the sidewalk going east-west, which that, to tell Neil Land, is that we didn't have to build that, but we felt we had to build it because that part of the project wasn't coming in yet, but we built it early so we would facilitate sidewalks to schools, and then right to the front door of the elementary school. And then internal to the site, that is just an example of all the walking paths that are being provided to the elementary school. And then from the north down to the high school, you'll be able to cross at the light, head all the way down the 10-foot path on Fort Hamer and over to the school.
Ride your bike.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Pat Neal again. I intend to close, but my report is primarily on the status of Moccasin Wallow Road and Fort Hamer Extension, which was a request at the second phase of North River Ranch, which we discussed with you April 13th. So it may take another 3 or 4 minutes. Or I can do it after this presentation if you'd like it then. Or if you don't want it, you can say, not today.
It's relevant.
What's the 4th option?
It's up to you, Mr. Chairman.
I want that picture again.
All right.
Why don't you go ahead and move, yeah.
The good news is, as you can
3 or 4
see,
minutes, Pat,
if you
so
can
we
divert your attention
you
from
go.
John lying on the sidewalk,
First
you can
Street,
see that the road itself is very well under construction on Fort Hamer Extension.
Hamer, okay, good.
Section B is nearing completion. We're well under construction on Section A, and I would say that everything is good with the Fort Hamer Extension, and we'll definitely have Segment B completed by the time the high school opens. And I would say, under Tom's leadership, the project has gone well, and our working with your team, and especially Sia Molanazar and Chad Butso, has been excellent. We've enjoyed the process, and it's gone well. On April 11th, I told you that we would work on Moccasin Wallow Road, which of course is where the Fort Hamer Extension currently intersects. I've employed our old group, the old White Hat group, which is now called the Economic Stimulus Working Group, and we've hired the former Secretary of the DOT and the person who I think, the only person I know who walks into the Governor DeSantis' office every day. And we are working hard on a economic development grant and a state DOT grant for Moxon Waller Road for the year 2020. Incidentally, the work on 44th Avenue and the state appropriation on 44th Avenue is, in my mind, going very well. It is on the, it's on a list of things that shouldn't be appropriated with state funds, but I believe it will be appropriated with state funds on a county road, based on the argument that it relieves traffic on State Road 64 and State Road 70, and we've been able to demonstrate that it meets not only an evacuation purpose and also relief on State Road 64 and 70. Back to Moxon Waller Road. We will be asking in your CIP hearings for a minor appropriation so that we may identify the right-of-way needs, and in particular, the question of whether we need to purchase 3 pieces of property and divert the roadway south by about 16 feet to avoid a Corps of Engineers conflict that would take about a year to resolve. So we'll be asking for your early appropriation for preliminary engineering on the entire 3-phase section from Highway 301 to I-75, which will have to be a state investment to enable us to seek the state grant and the school board's cooperation in a public-private construction for the Moxon Waller Road. So I'll close by saying that process seems to be going well and is part of our commitment to make sure that North River Ranch meets the impacts of its development and creates a great place for people to live. For this meeting, I'll just say today and at this time, I ask that you approve the Morgan's Glen component of North River Ranch. The final site plan has been created. It's pending at Manatee County, and if and upon your approval, we'll be starting this project almost immediately. Thanks for your time and attention with us this morning.
Thank you, Pat. Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, this looks, when you start looking at the area, as close as we're getting to a master plan community like Lakewood Ranch that people in Parrish have been asking for. We all know that one of the issues in Parrish has been that it isn't a 30,000 acre master planned community like Lakewood Ranch. But we're getting there. We've got schools, we've got hopefully roads, we know Moxon Wallow needs to be resolved. I'm glad to see a bigger picture. My questions, I did have a discussion briefly, sat across from Mike Penley yesterday, asked him if he was going to be here, and he said, oh, no. I thought, well, shoot, it'd be nice if you were, because I think the issue rightly identified by the Planning Commission is access to the schools, and it looks like made some great progress, so congratulations, Planning Commission, for bringing this forward and for negotiating. I've never seen a stipulation like stipulation number 11. I want to make sure I understand it. Stipulation 11 says the applicant shall cause such private streets, sidewalks, and parking lot adjacent to the school to be open. So are we talking about in the commercial area? I'm asking the applicant, is that what you're committing to, keeping a parking lot area next to the school so that people can come drop their kids off and park there? I've never seen a stipulation like that, so.
Number 11?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Because a parking lot, to me, I mean, you don't have parking lots, unless that's multifamily. And it says, and I read a portion of it, it says, if the applicant elects to have private streets upon obtaining all necessary regular approvals, the applicant shall cause such private streets, sidewalks, and parking lot adjacent be open for the residents, both sides for pedestrian access during the hours of operation. So,
Ed Vogler, have been sworn. I read that stipulation also, and I believe when you read all the way through it, it relates to pedestrian connections. And so I think the idea is, however you design it, we want to have pedestrian connections, whether it's on your commercial site or it's on your residential site or so forth. So you've got not a comprehensive design for the commercial piece yet, but I think the stipulation is saying that we will be pedestrian sensitive even there.
Okay.
But we're not committing the private lands to, some particular use other than the pedestrian access.
well, and we all know the fact of the matter is, even though kids are within walking and bike riding distance. In Manatee County, for some reason, we have a huge amount of parents that drive their kids to school. We're way more than other communities. They don't take the bus, and you wouldn't be eligible for the bus, I don't think, because you're so close.
Right.
But, I guess people are worried that kids, even though you give them a 10-foot sidewalk, for some reason can't walk to school.
Well, that,
Somebody will
I
take
get
it.
it, but.
of course, I probably like you walk both ways uphill, in the winter. But, so I did want to respond to the point with the school board. I wanted to assure you that not only are we thinking about this, we have entered into an agreement that is signed, sealed, and delivered with the school board to build that road. And we put the stipulation in there so that when we get to our final site plan, the road is like right next to us, a little on the school board piece, not right on the Morgan's Glen piece. And we want your staff to be knowing that that the board has approved that final site plan for that road. Not the final site plan, but the right to build the road
Right.
at a final site plan.
And I was going to ask that because at first when I saw the may, I thought, well, what good is a may? But as I understand it, and that's in stipulation number 12, as I understand it, the reason you're saying that is you want to make sure that you don't have to come back to get a new access approved by the board. Is that correct?
Absolutely correct.
And, we don't see the details of the school. So I'm trusting that you're working with the school and that is the appropriate place. When you say a bus access, I'm like, oh, boy, my kid's walking in front of a bus. But you're working that out with the school to make sure that's the appropriate pedestrian access to the school.
A great deal of engineering thought into the design of that, and very expensive, actually. Much more than we anticipated. But
But it's
doing
your intention to build that so that kids don't have to walk all the way out. I mean, my concern is that kids will take the shortest route, safe or not, and you're trying to make sure there's a safe route to the school there. Is that correct?
It is correct, but there's another element of it. The school board likes to avoid the conflict at the front of the school with the buses. So this has given them the opportunity to bring it around the rear.
Okay.
Now, we have our own challenge because now we've got to get our pedestrian connection across that as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's part of our planning effort, and we know that. Commissioner, there will be potential conflicts between bus and students walking from our project, and we're going to have to manage that by design.
Okay. But it is your commitment, even though it says may, it's your commitment to build this.
Yes,
On the record.
we want the may, well, it is our commitment to build it. We've signed an agreement. The may word was so that your staff would feel empowered.
He knows how to
Well,
play
I'm
the
sure I'll
game.
hear from staff how empowered they are.
That was a great comment.
Only thinking about you, Margaret, that's,
Yeah.
Commissioner Trace.
So we are going to have bus access from Fort Hamer to the west side of the school, off of the Fort Hamer, or are we just talking about the buses will enter on 115th, is it? And go to the back side and then exit on the west side of the school?
So,
That's 'cause they don't know what she's gonna ask.
you can see here, Commissioner, the elementary school site. And just to the west of that, there's about a 350-foot by 300-foot piece of land that is where the access is going to be, on the back side of that school.
Okay, so,
On the east side of the school board property?
It's very small, but you can see.
Yeah.
so the buses are going to come in on the east side and exit to the west side?
Zoom in.
Yeah, can you zoom in a little bit? It's slight.
Make it go down a little, though, the form.
Identify it. There's a road which you can see right here,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where the connection, and you see, this is from Frank Domingo's slide, where you can see the sidewalk access there. And I think that what we'll do is have the kids go behind the intersection while still on the school property, although that
I'm
hasn't been
talking
worked out.
strict, just the buses coming and going. There will be the buses will not be able to get off, the buses will have to go into Moccasin Wallow. And when they're coming.
Yes.
Other words, they will enter on 115th, I think it's 115th, on the east side. They'll go around the back of the school, let the kids off, and then they'll continue on the west side and then right turn only onto Moccasin Wallow.
Yes, we've been saying buses, but it's up to the school to decide, but
Well, I
we've
mean,
been
that
talking
is,
about
that
buses.
is what y'all are thinking. So there's no access, there's no bus access off of Fort Hamer.
Not at this time, because we haven't fully planned the area to the, to the school. We don't know what it looks like.
Right.
And will, that community, where you see access to the community, will that be a gated community?
I believe it's undetermined at this time. But we've committed to pedestrian access.
Okay.
Yeah, please, for the right answer. Rob
So,
Engel.
Rob Engel with Stantec, and I have been sworn. Yeah, so I think what John is referring to is kind of the phased aspect of it. Eventually,
Can you bring it down so we can, yeah.
sure. So today, there will be a right turn lane off Moccasin Wallow and this bus access down to their bus loop, right there. And in the future, we feel, as the land plan is today and all these things change, there'll be, this access road will continue from the commercial area all the way over to Fort Hamer, where there will be, if the school board chooses, there will be bus access from Fort Hamer directly to that bus loop, in and out.
Okay, that
And
Well,
that's
that
why I
answered the
wanted to
question.
I wanted to make sure it was clear, because you said something that was not our thoughts, that there's a bus loop on their property.
So they're going to right turn off of Moccasin Wallow onto that, and then, so they're not going behind the school? Okay.
That is behind the school. That is behind the school. So they'll come into the 50-foot road, they'll turn onto the school board property, they'll circulate around, then they'll come back out.
Okay, but I don't see, to me, the back of the school is what's next to Copperstone. That would be in the front of the school.
I think Commissioner Trace is talking about this as the back of the school.
I call, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
I mean,
I'd
well,
call it
that's-
the side of the school then.
I guess I should go north, south, whatever. Okay, all right, that answered the question. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Seeing no more questions from any of the commissioners, we'll move on to the staff for their presentation, assuming they have one.
Good morning, Dorothy Rainey for staff, and I've been sworn. My presentation is very brief, and I know the applicants covered more, that much and more, but it's for the Morgan's Glen project. The request is a preliminary site plan for 380 single-family attached and detached units and up to 175,329 square feet of commercial retail uses on 138.18 acres. The schedule of uses has been proffered with items or uses that have been stricken that are not appropriate or desired in this PDMU zoning. It's made an Exhibit B to the ordinance. And then there's 4 specific approvals, which the applicant did go over, reducing the rear setback for pools and pool cages from 15 to the usual 5 that other districts enjoy, to a reduction to the roadway buffer for commercial office uses from the 50-foot to the 25-foot, which is also very common to have requested for north central overlay. The third one is reduction to the greenbelt buffer from 20 to 10 feet in the area of Buffalo Canal. And again, the applicant gave the details on the reason for that. And reduction to the front yard setback for single family from 25 to 23 feet. There's aerials of the site you've seen already. PDMU zoning and UF3 future land use category. This is a rudimentary site plan, kind of highlighting the roadway network, the thoroughfare Fort Hamer, bisecting it down the middle, north to south. And then all the yellow are the internal roads for access to all the single family as well as the commercial uses. This is the, kind of highlights the schools that the applicant showed previously. The site details, the commercial component is over at the northwest corner, next to the future Barbara Harvey Elementary School, with access to Moccasin Wallow and Erie Roads. Access for the residential units is going to be off Fort Hamer from Moccasin Wallow all the way to Erie Road, internally with the internal roads that were shown on the previous site plan. One egress-only access point is located onto Moccasin, it's going on to Moccasin Wallow. And then there's the bus access, which was added per the agreement with the school board. The surrounding uses to the north across Moccasin Wallow, of course, is Bella Lago Villages of Amazon South Development. To the south is the Florida State College-owned property in PDMU zoning and Erie Road. To the east is single-family residences zoned A1 and North Central in the North Central overlay, as well as Village. And then, of course, to the west is the Barbara Harvey Elementary School site and the Copperstone residential units. We recommend approval of the preliminary site plan and the 4 specific approvals with the stipulations. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dorothy. Commissioner Trace.
Tom, will the county have access to Buffalo Canal for cleaning? Because I heard them talk about, some of the setbacks so we could have access to the canal. Is that giving us access? Or are they going to be responsible for the maintenance of Buffalo Canal?
For the record, Thomas Gerstenberger, Public Works Department, I've been sworn. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trace, with respect to Buffalo Canal and the tributary systems, staff is requesting that there be drainage easements along with maintenance access easements provided along those systems for perpetual county maintenance of those drainage systems. And we have also included stipulation B4 to address the easement dedication requirement.
So we will have access for that.
Yes.
And just because I always say it anytime there's in parish, this is, once again, 300-something more homes being into Buffalo Canal. Just Moccasin Wallow is, I know we're working on it hard, is not in good shape. And Erie Road is, there's going to be, with the Fort Hamer extension being built, a lot of people are going to be going down Erie Road, and it also is not. But after the other comments and public comment, I'll be happy to make a motion.
Okay, Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, and kind of what we've learned on 44th, putting it in the trip priorities. I just want to make sure, Moccasin Wallow, that we do, because right now it's not in any 5-year plan, correct? And there's no planned improvements on Moccasin Wallow at this time?
Good morning. For the record, Clark Davis, Interim Deputy Director of Traffic Management, have been sworn. Beginning at the big picture, there's a plan for it to be widened to 6 lanes eventually. However, none of the section east of I-75 has programmed improvements, nor is it included in the 15-year Surtex plan. So we would need to create a project for it and find a way to fund it.
Well, I want to make sure if we're, looking at a public-private partnership, that we do what we have to do on the public side to make sure that we can take advantage of this opportunity, and we need to have that discussion. I know, but Mr. Neal talked about right away and changing some alignment and working together. I just want to make sure that we do make it a priority in at least a project of record, maybe in the CIP. If it's not, whatever we need to do to make sure that we can pursue grants, pursue whatever it takes on our side. I know we don't have any funding set aside, I get that, and there's other priorities, but things like the trip that we did kind of after the fact on 44th, still not sure, you haven't weighed in on that yet, Clark, how that all went down, but I want us to be thinking about that, because we know we have a lot of units that are being approved out here. We know that this is an issue. We've been told that there is an effort by the private sector to try to move this forward to get grants. I just want to make sure we do whatever we have to on the county side to prioritize it however we can. So that's my request to staff.
So we do have a lot of approved, but as yet unbuilt dwelling units in the area, particularly. I mean, there's some non-residential as well, but most of it's residential. And that creates an emerging need for widening Moccasin Wallow Road. So there's a lot of trips that can go on that road that aren't there yet, but when they get there, we'll want to have a wider road. So as a result of that, it is on the projects of record list, which is, for those that don't know, it's a table in the back of the capital improvement program that shows those projects that are not fully funded, that are either existing or emerging needs. And Moccasin Wallow is among them. I know that when we had put in for the
Can you speak higher? Thank you.
I don't,
It's on.
when we
yes. Thank you.
put in the grant for the Department of Economic Opportunity, I thought we had identified some local funding, but I don't recall the source for that. So I'd need to refresh my memory, but if we've got some funding set aside, if it's transportation funding, I can work with Mr. Butzo and we can see if we can bring a project forward to at least do that preliminary engineering step that Mr. Neal has requested, so we can start scoping the project a little better and looking at what our right-of-way needs will be for it.
And since Mr. Neal's standing there, I'll ask him a question. Is there something that we need to be doing to put this forward so that you can or actually make money appear to improve Moccasin Well?
Yes. We've worked very successfully with Mr. Butzo and Mr. Molanazar and with their county administrator and with Jan Brewer, and we're getting 100% cooperation. In truth, I have not talked with Clark yet, and that's my bad, Clark. We need to make sure that everybody at Manatee is on board. We have asked for time on your June 19th CIP public hearing to make a very brief presentation about what we need, and we'll ask you then to make a decision to put some things on your 5-year CIP so that we can truly call this a public-private partnership. So the answer is definitely yes. We're preparing the steps, and we've had very good cooperation with your staff thus far.
Thank you.
Commissioner Servia.
Yes, thank you. It's been really exciting to watch this project morph into what it is, and great presentation by the applicants team and by staff. But my question is for staff about the NCO overlay standards that we consistently receive specific approvals for and honor them. Can you talk to us a little bit about the timeline? I think we're moving to change those in the Land Development Code, or maybe not. If not, I think that we should.
Good point.
Yes, Margaret Tusing with Building and Development Services. Right now, the NCO standards were developed by the parish area group, so we usually let them take the lead as to, what transpires. They have been in favor of the 25-foot reduction for the buffering for the commercial uses, within the area, because they recognize they were not getting commercial uses to build because there was limited visibility. So I don't know. I do know that we have a parish plan coming forward, I think on the 20th, at our 20th meeting, or I can't remember, sorry.
If you don't know, we're in trouble.
Well, it's written down, but I don't have it with me right now. So I do know that we have a presentation planned for that, and that may incorporate some of those things. Because I agree, part of the goal is as we continue to ask for specific approvals on things, it's time to revisit whether or not the code is appropriately designed. So we will be looking at those things, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ball.
Oh. Actually, I was going to bring up the parish overlay. I was wondering, since I didn't see any letters from them or anything, so I was assuming that they were in agreement with the special approval, but you just answered that, so thank you very much. And the only other thing I'd say is, yes, I would have to agree. I think it was Commissioner Benak that said this is looking more and more like a master plan community. I do agree with that. Very familiar, obviously, with Lakewood Ranch. And so I'm glad to hear that what Mr. Neal just said about the 19th coming forward with a plan. And I think the county needs to work very closely to make sure that the roads are complete so that it really does look, and it is a master plan community. That's going to make the biggest difference in the world. Thank you.
Okay, seeing nobody else on the board, we will now open this up to public comment. If there's anybody from the public that would like to come down and discuss Morgan's Glen. Sir, please come down, state your name and that you've been sworn, please.
My name is Dan Young. I live in Whitfield, 7215 Broughton Street. My question is fairly simple, but it's a broader question. You've used the word master planned, and if you don't live in Lakewood Ranch, master plan doesn't, or in a master planned community, it doesn't mean quite the same thing. So my question is this. In this master plan, are you going to be putting any affordable housing in this development, or actually even wider ones, and I appreciate having Mr. and both the Neils here, because they're probably our largest developer in the country. I recently attended a presentation by the county about affordable housing, which we'll be talking about next week, and it's not relevant to this, I realize. But I say to myself, what have you done in your development? You're the builders of houses. You can produce houses. What have you done to accommodate your service people that are going to obviously be needed here, or the teachers or whatnot? Because we're asking for the non-master, we'll soon be asking for the non-master planned areas to take on all those people. Okay, so that's kind of my question, and it's a bigger question than just this development. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to come down and discuss anything? Seeing nobody, we will close public comment. Does staff have any closing comments? No? Applicant, would you like to say anything? Okay. So at this point, we will,
I'll make a motion that we, that we approve the recommended motion along with the stipulation, the revised stipulation D2.
Second.
okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Trace, seconded by Commissioner Ball. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Chairman, I was on the board for a question in between, but I just wanted to say, and that's fine, and I'm happy with how the result was. But in response to Mr. Young's comments, thank you very much for being here. We do have quite a few affordable housing units that have been approved and are now in the process, and you're going to see them coming on board. But I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. Thank you.
Okay, moving along to number 10. Let's see, this is an LDC.
I'll make sure we get a lot of mileage with this, okay? Just make sure that one's.
Oh, yeah, totally,
I'll be seeing that one again, I'm sure.
totally.
Yeah, we want that picture.
We got it.
I wanted it for my office.
Put it as your desk saver, desktop saver.
Frying on the sidewalk.
Priscilla, you should have that picture up in your office.
I love that his arms were
Go
so
dark
fast.
I know.
That's something
I
Pat
said, is he a
would do.
speed bump, for people walking really
That's
fast
something John
on
would do. That's something
the
I thought
sidewalk?
it was the egg frying on the sidewalk, but it was John
Did
Neal.
anyone notice that when he had the elementary school, he still had it North River Elementary? On the name?
It is.
Well, that's
Huh?
complaints.
Yes, just saying.
North River High School.
Huh?
I said North River High School.
It said North River, but it's Parish Community
I
High
know,
School.
yes.
Yeah, is that what it's called? I can't
Yes.
remember now.
Dumb.
It went through so many things. Okay.
Name, that's the same.
Paris.
It's a battle we've already won, why bring it up,
Exactly.
during the meeting?
Okay, Margaret, would you like to introduce
I
this
would.
item?
I would like to give you an update. I did with the, advent of technology. I can ask questions from down here. The parish plan is coming before y'all on the August 22nd meeting.
Okay.
So,
Parish, what?
it's from Neighborhood Services. It's the parish overlay plan. So
Overlay, okay.
that will be August 22nd. I think it's at a 1:30 time certain. I did want to share that with you. Item number 10 is Land Development Code Text Amendment 1901, Ordinance 1927. It is a Land Development Code text amendment for street and structure numbering standards addressing. This is a legislative matter. It is, Vicki Warner will be presenting for Manatee County. This is a county-initiated text amendment. We're amending the Land Development Code by amending Chapter 10, Transportation Management, Table 10-1, Manatee County Street Designation Chart, Section 1001.8, Street and Structure Numbering Standards. Ms. Warner is here for a presentation by staff.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Vicki Warner, Building and Development Services. Before you today are some minor changes to this section of the code. It's basically clarifying some language, removing some redundancy, and organizing some content. We've added Publication 28, which is the United States Postal Service standard for our suffixes and how mail is to be addressed. We've removed Pike as a street suffix because, quite frankly, we've never used the term pike in this county ever, and I don't actually think that it is applicable. In our street designation chart, we removed roadway links as links are not used to determine a street suffix or a street type. It's the direction of the roadway, it's how it meanders and how it is designed. With regard to commemorative street names, we added notarized signatures so that it ensures that the folks who are involved in commemorative street names have been contacted and they are the property owners. Structure numbers, we've changed the structure numbers to make them a little bit larger, make them a little more visible for emergency service responders. And the major change was streamlining the street naming process. As you all currently know, when an applicant wishes to use street names, they have to submit an application. It gets reviewed by several departments, and then it's placed on consent agenda for your action. And if we want to deviate from that, if we want to deviate from the numbers, then we have to follow that process. And in Manatee County, we have largely veered away from the grid system, so to speak. Roadways designs now are really more curvilinear. They meander and wind all around. They don't really meet the standards. And it does not encourage street numbering in a lot of the cases. And with mapping technologies available today, street names don't create the issues that was once thought. And the Public Safety Department and fire districts have consistently supported those street waiver requests. The only thing that the public safety folks have asked is that the street names are easy to recognize and are not duplicates. And addressing staff does review all of the street names that are submitted to ensure that that is complied with. So actually the change that would be with regard to street naming would just make it an administrative process. It just wouldn't come to you guys on a consent agenda.
Street names, not.
That pretty much concludes.
I think there's no action on this, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Commissioner Whitmore is on the board.
Vicki, I remember, was it last year or the year before, you came to us at a budget hearing, and is it your department that you have been there for many years and you have a big charts and papers or a thing that you actually put up every street in the county? Is that right?
Well, I have what we like to refer to as my historic maps that Commissioner Servia and Benak are very, very familiar with.
You can find stuff.
Exactly. These maps, they're half-section maps that over the years, my tenure with the county, it was a cut and paste world.
Right.
So everything's there, file numbers, they belong in the Smithsonian. So I guard them with my life because there's a lot of information there, so.
Now, isn't that weird? I remember that from last year's budget. And I remember when we said you had to come before the commission when we were going to name, because public safety, fire, everybody was having such hard times that they just wanted a numbering system. And then every meeting, we always approve it, and so do they. So I hope this isn't going to be a public safety issue, but I guess with Google's and all that, as long as it's still up and, you can get a satellite, that it will be okay. But I understand why we did it, but again, like you said, the grid system, I know how painful it was when we made it that you had to come before the commission to start with it once you started wanting to name it, and then we never denied it, so it was like useless. But thank you for your hard work. I don't know, I never had met you until that meeting, but I still remember all the stuff that you painstakingly, manually, that you still do. Now, are you still having to do that?
We are moving forward into the 21st century. We are working on addressing a digital world. However, I have to say this to everybody here, I will never let go of those maps. I will always keep them close to my heart, but we are moving forward so things are digitally kept and easier to find. And as far as you're concerned with public safety, consistently, every request that comes before you, they weigh in, our public works folks weigh in, and our fire districts. They have consistently approved those requests. So as I've brought them forward on consent, it's because they've approved it, they've supported the street names, because it's not an issue like it was in 1985 when we first adopted our ordinance.
Right.
technologies have gotten so good that they're not really concerned about it. We just have to watch out that they're not phonetically the same.
When I see the audience member, business community clap, and our planners up here clap, obviously, you have a very important job at this county, and it's been cherished for a long time, so keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, Vicki, I'm really glad to hear that the maps aren't going away, you know. Used to be, and I don't know, but for a long time, you would take a small subdivision with all the numbers and put it on there. So you,
That's what she
when you
said.
went through there,
Yeah.
you'd always find out what was being developed throughout the county. It really is truly the history maps of the county. And so I'm glad to hear they're not going away. I did just have one question. I see that we're increasing the size of the height requirements for address numbers. So when do people have to comply with that?
They need to comply with that, basically with new construction. We're kind of moving forward. We're not looking to go back and retro anything. They replace numbers, of course, that would be a requirement. I don't know that we could necessarily know when they're painting or removing, but going forward, because it seems to be a little more of an issue for emergency responders. The larger the numbers, the easier it is for them to see them. So we're just trying to help them out. So it'll be going forward, not anything going backwards. We're not going back and saying everybody in the county has got to now fix your numbers.
And how old is Ashley now? Your daughter?
I'm sorry, how old is Ashley?
How is
Ashley?
How old is your daughter?
Okay, she's 35, she's 35, she's gonna be 36 in December.
I just say that because I remember working with Vicki when she was pregnant with
Yes.
her daughter, so that's why I bring it up. You want to know how long she's been around, Carol? There you go. Sorry.
No, it's no problem.
You can hit her later.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll talk later.
Good girl.
Okay, Commissioner Servia.
Yes, thank you very much for this incredible efficiency improvement. It really is. It's going to save everybody a lot of time. But I just wondered about those history maps. Is there a transitional plan for them? Are they in somebody's will or trust? Because they are really, really important.
Absolutely, they are. And as you know, the problem with those maps, they have been scanned. However, there's information under those paper copies. So as far as I am concerned, as long as I'm here, they're going to remain here, and hopefully they will forever, because there is a lot of information there. A lot of times you go back, as you guys know, go back and find old site plans and
Lift up
what
the
happened, where
stuff.
lift up the paper and look. Absolutely.
Very careful. It's like
So-
museum quality.
Yeah, there's no plans on my part to get rid of them. I guard them with my life.
And I will tell you that Ashley was the nurse for my brother when he was in the hospital, and so.
Is that crazy?
Really? Oh, my goodness. Good girl.
She's an RN, yes.
Good girl.
Okay, well, thank you, Vicki, and this doesn't require any action, but for the sake of brevity here, maybe we can jump to number 14, where we do need to get a motion to do a second.
Oh, I'm good. I'm good.
So I think we just need a motion to, I think, move this on to the second hearing, if I'm not
We move it on, the recommended motion.
Second.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just
Misty got it,
to
though.
be clear, the motion is to be able to hold the second public hearing prior to 5 PM. That is what the motion is. So if you're going to open this up to the public, that is the request. I just want to make sure.
That's
We have a
everybody
motion
knows
and
what
a
it is.
second.
The request is to hold it at 1:30 or soon thereafter, as may be heard, on June 20th, 2019. So at this point, we'll open it up to the public. If there's anybody from the public that would like to add anything. Seeing nobody, we will close public comment. Who made the motion? I'm sorry. On 14.
Actually, I thought I heard Misty.
Yeah, I said so moved, and then.
Okay, that's fine.
Priscilla came after.
That's
It was
fine.
very confusing.
And seconded by Priscilla.
Sure. Second.
Okay.
You have to read it in the record.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. We've closed public comment, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Vicki. You can go back.
Good job.
Rather than have to come back down later. The next item on the agenda is item number 11. Margaret, and I believe this is a legislative item as well.
Yes, the remainder of the agenda is legislative. This is item number 11, which is Plan Amendment 1809, Ordinance 1912. It's Sarah Bay Development. It is a small-scale map amendment and text amendment. This was heard by the Planning Commission on May 9th. This is a privately initiated map and text amendment to the future land use and future land use map and future land use element of the comprehensive plan to designate specific real property from low-intensity office and residential 3 dwelling units to the acre, future land use classifications, to retail office residential future land use, for a total of approximately 4.37 acres. The property is on the western portion of an overall 8.1 acre site, which is located at 7045 North Tamiami Trail, Sarasota, Manatee County. It's providing for a specific property development condition within the text to limit the number of residential units and also the square footage for non-residential uses. I will be presenting today for Rosina. She's at the FPZA conference, and also the applicant's representatives are here for presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll hear from the applicant now. Come forward.
Good morning. I'm Shelley Johnson with Ensight. I'm representing the applicant this morning, and I have been sworn. So this project, let me see if I can figure this out first. This project was before you, and back in February, we were requesting to amend the land use designation on the entire 8.81 acres, if you recall. With your advice and with the input of the Whitfield subdivision, we've completely revised our approach to this project and are now requesting to just amend the land use designation on the western 4.37 acres, as you can see on the map here, from the OL and RES3 designations to ROR. The map on the left shows you the existing land use designation. It shows the outline of the 4.37 acres that we're looking at amending, and then the proposed future land use map is on the right. You can see that the ROR, the area that the way it's been shrunk down is very similar in depth to the ROR designated properties that are to the north and south of the property, and again is in close proximity and sort of supports the character, the ROR character that's running along the US 41 corridor. Just as kind of a refresher, there are numerous overlay districts that the property falls into, all of the coastal planning area overlays, the airport impact overlay, the historical and archaeological, the urban core service area, and this portion of Tamiami Trail is also a designated urban corridor of Manatee County. Concurrent with this amendment request is a rezoning application to convert the zoning to a planned development commercial. That's under review now with staff. I think we're pretty close to getting that completed, and that hopefully will be before you this summer sometime. So the tables on the right, the top table is the existing density and intensity calculation, and you can see that under today's land use designation, there would be a maximum of 24 dwelling units allowed and 66,624 square feet of commercial development. Under the proposed future land use designation, we would be limiting the density intensity to the same. That's partly driven by it is largely driven actually by the fact that the property falls into the coastal planning areas, which limits density and intensity, and our traffic impact statement, which I'll get to in a minute. So there is no increase in the density or intensity as compared to what could happen today. And as I said, this is because of the coastal planning area overlays that the property falls into, and based on our traffic impact statement, if the FAR is managed at 0.35, there are no long-term or short-term roadway impacts. So based on that, there's a condition that the applicant has agreed to limit the density intensity to 24 residential units and 66,624 square feet of commercial and office development, same as what would be allowed today. The compatibility remains the same. As I mentioned, the density intensity is the same. The property is adjacent and in close proximity to other ROR designated properties along the corridor. Access will be available from the 6-lane arterial corridor of US 41. It will provide for commercial services to passersby as well as nearby residences. All of the infrastructure is in place, and The reduction in size of our request eliminates the ROR potential uses being placed immediately adjacent to the Whitfield community. The approximate depth of the remaining 8.8 acres is about 450 feet from the actual Whitfield community. We've held 2 subsequent meetings with the Whitfield community following our public hearing in February. We met with their zoning committee in April, and then we presented to the community association at their meeting on May 13th. And just last night, actually, I received a letter of no objection from the president of the association. I wasn't able to print it out or anything, but I do have the letter. If you want me to read it into the record, I'm happy to do that. So with that, that's really all I have. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Servia.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much for all of your efforts to take this back to the drawing board and to come back with a solution that was beneficial for the neighborhood, that worked better with our comprehensive plan, and that worked for your clients. So I really appreciate that. And we would like to have a copy of that letter for the record, please, if you
Okay.
could give that to the clerk.
Okay, I will do that. And I did email it to Rosina and then realized I forgot she was out of town today, so.
So it is already the county.
It's at the county, but it hasn't been entered into the record? Not
No.
yet? Yeah,
Okay, I'll get that.
thank
I'll
you.
have to figure out how to get it to you.
Well,
I have it on my phone. Okay. Okay, we'll get it there. Thank you.
Yes.
Commissioner Whitmore.
and we got exactly, the citizens got what they asked for. This is what they suggested during the last meeting. Can you read the letter? Do you have it? If she, I mean, I'd like to at least hear it, and, because I'm not sure who the president is, truthfully. So we appreciate you, while you're looking it up, working to get a win-win for everybody.
The president is Bill Epsy, so and I don't think he's here today, but, okay. So, thank you and Shelley Johnson's team for keeping the lines of communication open and presenting the latest update to the Whitfield Ballantine Manor Association regarding the status of your acquisition and your updated plans for future development of the above-mentioned property. You've requested our feedback for your most recent plans, which we are providing via this letter. Your latest plans, as they were presented to our association on Monday, May 13th, 2019, are a significant change to your prior plans, which the Manatee County Commissioners voted to not approve. You revised your comprehensive plan amendment and are now requesting to change the future land use designation of the westerly portion of the property to ROR, also asking for some additional land currently in the RES3 area. And most importantly, you are leaving the remainder of the property RES3. Although the proposed depth still extends the trends for commercial in this area, exceeds the trends for commercial in this area. In the spirit of cooperation and compromise, the WBMA Board of Directors will not object to the applicant's revised comprehensive plan proposal.
Thank
Thanks, Bill. Bill, yeah. So,
Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, I also think the process has worked here to a great degree. These are legislative items, which means we have the ability to try to get something different than what was proposed, very different than in a rezone sometimes where you already have the comp plan designation. So I'm glad that the board took the action that they did, and I'm glad that you responded the way you did and that folks are in support. What we don't have the right to do unless we buy the property is to take away all use of the property.
Right.
And I know we got a letter, an email from someone that says, well, why don't we just turn this into a park for the birds that are there? Well, we could do that, but that would take the county buying the property, and this property is not something that's been identified by anyone in the county as something that is appropriate to buy for a park at this time. So I just wanted to say that because I know folks sometimes wonder why we do things the way we do. Well, it's because we follow our comp plan and our regulations. Thank you.
thank you.
Commissioner Servia.
Yeah, very good, Betsy. Thank you for saying that. For staff, I just want to give you a heads up during your presentation. Please, I would like a description of the density intensity calculation, just in a little more detail so that I understand it. If that's probably already in your presentation, but if you could just explain.
What? We're going, what? You have to really
I just
explain
want
it
to
to
make
us.
sure that I understand it.
Everybody, you guys understand it, you too.
I
Well, since
think all seven
Rosina's
of
not
us
here,
do
I
at
don't think
this
Margaret's all that familiar with. Oh, okay, never mind. I was going to offer to help, but.
Well, I would like to hear from the applicant.
Well,
I
you
would
know.
like to hear from the applicant. The applicant has agreed to this proffered
button.
condition.
Yes.
I did. I'm sorry. I'll wait till you call my name. I hit my button, Vanessa. He just didn't call my name.
If you could put my presentation back up, I'll go through my tables because it's pretty much the same
Okay,
as the
thank
staff
you.
report.
I appreciate it.
Are you okay? Okay. Okay, so the top table shows you that right now, the low-intensity office designation represents 3.79 acres of the property at a density, allowable density of 6 units an acre. And the RES 3 is just over a half acre in size at 3 units an acre. And so when you calculate that out, you have just a little over 22 units in the OL designation and 1.74 in the RES. So 24.48 residential units, or 24 units is what's allowed today. Same as with the FAR, the limitation is 0.35 for both of those land use designations. And then calculating that with the acreage, it comes up to 66,624 square feet of office and commercial. So the remaining, just so you know, the remaining 8.81 acres, which is not being changed from the RES 3, is roughly 4.4 acres, and we've calculated a maximum of 13 dwelling units could occur on that piece of the property.
You still have the floor. Go
I
ahead.
do still have the floor.
ahead.
So, so just so I'm clear, it seems, has it been double counted? The density and the intensity are being added together?
Well, no, the density is only the residential capability on the property, which is the
Right.
24 units.
Right.
The intensity is the commercial square footage that might occur.
Right.
And the ROR could allow one or the other, or even both, so. A
So it
mix of
does allow both?
Totally.
What we try to do with the D5 restriction is to say that if this were to develop residentially under the ROR, it would be limited to 24 units. If it were to develop commercially, it's limited to 66,000 square feet. Or if it was going to be a mixed-use project, then again, those limitations would still apply. They could never go over that.
Thank you, Margaret. So I understand that at the next stage, you'll be looking at exactly what their proposal is and how it falls within these guidelines.
Correct. You
Thank
can't,
you.
you can't exceed that because if you're in the coastal evacuation area, our coastal element restricts you from increasing your density. So that is why we attach the D5 restriction on properties that are located within the coastal evacuation. You know, we don't have a commercial designation that doesn't have residential associated with it. So it's very difficult to just pick commercial and not increase density, because the density could increase in the ROR.
Thank you.
Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, and I want to just follow up on that, because the coastal high hazard, or coastal evacuation area, whatever we call it nowadays, coastal high hazard has the limitation, is this correct, Margaret, that you cannot increase density?
That is correct.
Okay, so that's why going through this and actually putting a condition in the comp plan, which is unusual, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we do have D5 conditions on other projects.
Right, but so if it-
Specifically for the coastal evacuation area, I'm not certain we have done that before, no. What we did try to do when we updated the comprehensive plan back in October was in those areas where density was increasing or that there's density bonus provisions for things, we tried to make it clear by adding an additional line that says if you were in the coastal high hazard area or the coastal evacuation area, you could not increase your density. For instance, ROR now was 9 dwelling units to the acre. It is now 16 if you're not within the coastal high hazard area or the coastal evacuation.
well,
I
and,
to make it more clear.
right, and I was trying to point that out because that is a limitation that is particular to this property that is being put on this property in the comp plan,
That is
correct?
correct. Yes, it's particular to this piece of property.
But so the limitation on keeping the same intensity in the OL to the ROR, to me, that is unique. Is that, I can't think of it, can you think of anywhere else where we've done that? Where we've done an OL?
A new comp plan change, I think. Was it about a year ago? Because I asked the same question.
So we do it in Texas.
Yes.
It was determined that intensity is also limited within the coastal evacuation area.
Okay, that's the first I'd heard of that. Thank you.
Okay. Nobody else on the board? Staff have any presentations?
Do y'all need a full presentation from me? Okay.
We've
You're
had
good?
it before, but.
Let me look. I think we did a good job of working together. No, I think unless you have any specific questions that I can answer, I am available.
Don't see any. So at this point, we'll open it up to public comment. We have one person signed up, Mr. Young. Please come down, state your name. You have 3 minutes.
I'm Dan Young on 7215 Broughton Street in Whitfield. I'll be brief. It sounds like it's been worked out. I'm sorry, I was out of the country when these meetings were held, so I didn't get any feedback from anyone. One question is the drainage in this area. If you recall, the last time this came up and I spoke, I was concerned about taking 9 acres of basically dirt. There is some paving there, but it's a good 8 acres of dirt, right, really adjacent to Bowley's Creek. And it floods there, and of course there's traffic considerations as well. But the drainage issue, will they be raising the elevation of the land there, and will there be drainage pipes that'll ultimately just be going straight into Bowley's Creek, whether it be on the residential side or the commercial side? Because I understand they have to raise it to above the level of the road, so they'll be raising that land, because there is serious flooding to the south of them in that area. So flooding's a serious consideration in there, and the bay's been a mess for now almost 10 months now, and I don't know how much longer that's going. It's all drainage, and I know yesterday I saw them putting in a new drain pipe to help more stuff go into the bay. They took down a tree that had crushed the pipe in Whitfield, and I'm really seeing that. It's really significant. So drainage is a big issue. I hope that's being addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to come down? Yes, ma'am. Again, please state your name and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes. Hi, my name is Sharon Wadecki. I live on Montgomery Avenue. I would like to know, the access is only going to be from the highway to this portion of land? Or I know that they're not opening or extending Manatee Street, which could be extended, but, excuse me, they've chosen not to do that. My property is further down. There's a vacant lot, so basically a dirt road. I want to know if that's going to be turned into an access road or some type of road in the future, which would mean I would have road going in front of me and then on the side of me and possibly in back of me. That's my main question, if anyone has an answer to that.
After public comment, they'll answer.
Okay.
Not now.
Okay. That's basically my only question. Also, like flooding. Flooding is a big issue there. They've changed the floodplain from X to AE. So is this going to add more of an impact with the flooding? And also the uses, the roads, the business, the busyness of the roads, because we're having, on Montgomery, we're having more large trucks coming down that road, and they come pretty fast. So the impact with the noise of the road and the use of the road and the safety of the road. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else from the public that would like to come down and speak at this point? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Commissioner Servia?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if we could, I know that this is not usually the time that we would address stormwater drainage and access issues, but because we've had people come to this meeting with those concerns, if we could ask our Public Works staff just to give us a little bit of information.
You got this, Tom?
Okay. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Servia, with respect to this particular project, of course, today we're looking at the comp plan amendment. However, there has been a general development plan that has been submitted as well for this particular project, that, with the understanding that it'd be revised to address the reduction in the area that's being proposed for the future land use amendment. However, that being said, as far as staff review of this particular comp plan amendment and the subsequent general development plan, we have already brought up with the applicant about the requirement for 50% reduction in allowable runoff, because it would be draining into Bullies Creek, the upper or the lower reaches of Bullies Creek before it enters into Sarasota Bay. And with respect to the 100-year floodplain, the 100-year floodplain for this particular development is within an area where there is two components. There is a component of storm surge flooding, along with the component of the rainfall flooding, which obviously at this point we're basically at the mouth of Bullies Creek into Sarasota Bay. The rainfall component of flooding is much lower than we would see for the storm surge component. 41, the rainfall flood stage component is right around 3 feet. So the topography on site is going to limit the amount of impact to the rainfall component of a 100-year floodplain. However, the project would be required to address the base flood elevation, including the storm surge component, when we get to general development plan and final site plan.
Yes, thank you for that explanation. And so, Mr. Young, hopefully you understand basically what he said was the water that's running off the land today won't increase. In fact, it will decrease by an additional 50%. Is that right, Tom?
Correct.
So
yes.
the flooding should improve when this project is developed, right?
Commissioner, if I might also add, this particular project right now, and historically never included any stormwater facilities associated with the church and the parking area and such with this particular property. With this project coming forward, they would need to address the county requirements for attenuation and water quality.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, before Mr. Davis speaks, I would like him to address, it's my understanding the genesis of the 66,000 square feet commercial limitation in the specific property condition is due to the traffic study. That if they exceeded that amount, they have to do road improvements. It does not relate to coastal evacuation area. I think there was a misstatement in the record. Either Margaret or Clark, we need to clarify that.
I was going to clarify that on the record. I don't know where my brain was. It is related to the traffic study, as the intensity is not controlled through its density for the coastal evacuation area. I apologize.
For the record, Clark Davis, Public Works, and if I understood the public comment correctly, we're talking, if we could have the document camera. This map shows in a heavy yellow outline the boundaries of the original comprehensive plan amendment request. It's now limited to the area roughly where the marker is laid down on the map there to the west half of that property. The portion here will remain able to only be developed with residential. There is a public road, Mendez Drive, that comes to a dead end at the edge of that parcel. If this were developed as residential, they could have access there. This is part of the property. It looks like a right-of-way, but it's part of the property coming out to Montgomery Avenue. If a road were introduced there or a driveway, it would be running between two homes and through their side yard. So that strikes me as a little bit unusual. So if they were to put something like that there, we'd probably need to look at something like a fence or a wall to make sure that there's no impacts on those neighbors. But either one of them, done correctly, could be a viable access to the residential component. We would look for opportunities to create maybe pedestrian connections between the commercial, if it develops that way, and the residential behind it as they go forward. We would strive to reduce vehicular impacts going back into the residential area, however. So they would need to access that along Montgomery out to 41 or on Magellan Drive rather than to cut through the neighborhood to get through the commercial component. And those are speaking to how we typically design or request the developers design their projects. But today we're just looking at a comp plan amendment. We don't have the final site plan in front of us to evaluate everything, but that's sort of playing the odds based on the existing conditions in the area.
Okay, thank you, Clark. Commissioner Benak?
Yeah, well, I just want to clarify, though, the back portion is staying as is. It's not proposed to change. So this board would not see any development back there. They would develop accordance with our current code, the I think it's res 3, right?
It's RSF 3 zoning and
Okay.
residential 3 future land use.
Okay,
So
so-
yes, if they develop exactly as that, it would just be an
There's
administrative.
nothing in front of us today to address, the areas that Clark just addressed aren't proposed for development before us today. That's not what we're considering, correct?
You're only considering the about 4.5 acres that are in the western portion of the
Okay.
site, correct?
All right, so I would like to address, because I think that was the woman who came forward, I think that was her question, was whether or not that commercial, mostly commercial, 24 units possibly, but my guess, unless they're doing something incredibly creative, which would be nice, that it's probably mostly going to be commercial like the rest of the strip along 41, the access that they could have. Now, Manatee Street, it looks like that right-of-way continues to the portion that is subject today. Does it? Is there right-of-way that goes forward from Manatee Street right there, or is that private property?
This looks like right-of-way to me. So it conceivably could be developed as access. If Jungle Way were brought up to standards, might be a viable access, and then, of course, they've got frontage on US 41.
So that was, I think, the question. Could they use Jungle Way? And you're saying that is right-of-way there, and Manatee Street possibly is right-of-way, even what looks like it's developed. I don't know. It's hard to tell with these kind of lines. Obviously, I don't know if the lines are in the right place. But is there right-of-way on Manatee Street that extends to the property?
It looks like this map may not be registered to the aerial underneath it. If you look at along 41, you can see that there's some of the sidewalk and turn lane there that looks like it's inside the property. So I'm guessing that the line work is offset to the west, if you will, on this map, which would put this parking that looks like it's overlaying the right-of-way just outside of it. But either way, these ghosted lines are open to Montgomery Avenue, which is in turn open to 41, and we take that as at least a preliminary indication that it's a public road right-of-way. You know, everything that's not parcels is usually some sort of right-of-way. The exact dimensions and location are things that we need to determine through survey and engineering as a project goes forward.
Do we or the applicant have a survey of this property that shows where right-of-way is adjacent to it? And it is coming forward as a planned development, I know, so we'll see it, and we can't get into the particulars of that, as I understand. But I was just asking if there's right-of-way adjacent, then there might be a possibility for access other than off the highway, which was the question we were asked. So I was just trying to answer it.
The map that's shown now is a survey, and it's kind of hard to interpret because it shows the historical plat there, but essentially all of this area has been vacated out to 41. So US 41 lies along here. This is Manatee Ave. This first lot depth along the frontage shows the right-of-way status unknown. So that it's shown as a right-of-way on there, but it's something that would be subject to further verification as they go forward. All of this in the middle seems to have been vacated, and that takes you over to this, which is labeled as Manatee Avenue, but is today Jungle Way Loop coming down to Magellan. So this stub going into Jungle Way is public. This may or may not be public as a stub into the property, and then the balance we believe to have been vacated.
Okay, thank you. I think that answers my question.
Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Clark.
Thank you.
So at this point, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve the comp plan amendment as recommended by staff.
Second.
Because it gets transmitted.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Servia, seconded by Commissioner Benak to approve the comp plan amendment. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Okay, moving on to number 12, Northeast Quadrant.
Yes,
Comp plan
item
text.
number 12 is Plan Amendment 1810, Ordinance 1916, which is the Northeast Quadrant, is a comprehensive plan text amendment. This is located within the Lakewood Ranch area. This is a legislative item. This is the adoption hearing. You heard the transmittal hearing was on April 4th. This is a privately initiated text amendment to change the maximum development totals for areas within the Northeast Quadrant and designated MUC on the future land use map, amending the text of specific area policy 2.14.1.6, future land use element of the Manatee County Comprehensive Plan to allow an increase in residential units, a change in residential type mix, and a decrease in the commercial square footage with a change in the proportions of non-residential uses. Dorinda Marvin is here from Graham-Scoble representing the applicant, and if you have any additional questions, I'm available as staff. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Morning.
It's nice to say good morning. I rarely get to go
I
before
know.
lunch. So Margaret and I decided we would not talk a lot about either of these, and we might all be out before lunch. So
You just ruined it. Now we
okay, that means
now we're in trouble.
Sorry. So Dorinda Marvin, I'm a senior planner with the law firm of Graham-Scoble, and I'm here this morning for Schrader Manatee Ranch. This is a text amendment that is applicable to about 7,000 acres in the ranch, which represents 20% of our developable land. For those of you who were not in the land development business back in 2008, we had something around the state called Amendment 4. Amendment 4 was a constitutional amendment that would have placed every comprehensive plan amendment on a ballot. So there was quite a scramble for many of us, and certainly for the landowners, to get those amendments in before that happened. Thankfully, that did not pass. But this is one of those amendments that came forward in 2009. And we created at that time a new future land use category called MUC, the Mixed Use Community. And we placed that over all of the remaining vacant land that Schrader Manatee owned. So what we had to do at that time was really take our best guess of what would fit. And you've heard this morning about these specific property limitations. Those are not associated with every comp plan amendment, but they often have to do with traffic. We will estimate what the traffic impacts would have been on the land and prove that they would not have changed. And so we come up with, as again, our best guess of a mix of what would be on that property. That doesn't take into account future roadways, public lands. In this area, we have the premier sports campus and the county's lands. It doesn't take into account anything that wouldn't go into those development parcels. So what we've done over time is refine that. And what we did working with the staff this time was to look at not only Manatee County, but also Sarasota County for Lakewood Ranch, and sort of really look at the ratio of the number of homes and the amount of square footage that would develop. And you can see the numbers that are in there for non-residential are just huge. They would never be developed here or anywhere in the ranch. The current entitled throughout the ranch is 554 square feet per unit. What we've actually built is 380. What you see in your comp plan today was 975 square feet of non-residential for every dwelling unit, which you can see is really sort of out of balance with what is developed. So we're bringing that in line to be 417 square feet, really sort of how we have developed. So it's a continuation of the mix that we have. So this is the adoption hearing. It was transmitted to the other agencies. We did not receive any comments or objections from any of those agencies, and we ask you today for your blessing on this adoption so that we can continue developing in the Northeast Quadrant. Thank you. That was me being brief.
Very efficient.
Staff agrees with what Ms. Marvin said. I mean, it is a text amendment, and, the history of this project, the amount of commercial that was approved was substantial, and it certainly makes sense to look at, what are the development ratios, so they're getting them more in line with what happens in the real world, not the idea that might happen at some point. So we are in concurrence with the change that is being proposed.
Okay. Commissioner Ball?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve.
Okay, we'll
Second.
accept that. Is there a second?
Second?
So, okay. Now we'll open it up to public comment. Is there anybody from the public that would like to come down? Seeing nobody from the public, we will close public comment. We have a motion by Commissioner Ball, seconded by Commissioner Serbia.
Serbia.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion for adoption passes 7-0.
Next.
Mr. Chair.
Next to lucky number 13.
Carol had,
He didn't,
Oh,
there's two people, somebody ahead of me.
Commissioner Baugh.
Okay, you didn't take her off.
no, she
Okay.
made the motion.
Can I just ask a question now that that's done? Sarah, mixed community. I remember that was a new thing back then, and didn't Teitelbaum's property, that's now Lombard, didn't we go through all that and made it mixed community, something new? You remember that? I knew when you were saying that, it was a big thing that we had to do.
Lake Flores is designated
Flores.
as MUC, and it still,
That
and it
was-
also
okay,
has a
Whitey's Pro-
specific development
It was
condition.
right next to Lombard. Okay,
Yeah.
it's the only other one I've seen, was this one and that one.
Right.
Okay.
They did use them both.
See, I do pay attention. That was a long time ago.
That doesn't.
And thank you for punching your button. I
Yeah.
apologize for not seeing your name.
Yeah,
pop
and
up.
I do push it, you don't put, thanks a lot. I'm used to it. Baby's in the corner. No matter where I am, I'm used to it. I'm a big girl.
I'm telling you, poor baby.
Poor baby's in the corner.
Go back, stand on.
Oh, we're not arguing. Be careless about that.
Okay, Margaret, the floor is yours.
Hi. Lucky number 13. Plan Amendment 1812, Ordinance 1901, which is the Lakewood Center addition. It is a large-scale map amendment. The Planning Commission heard it on March 14th, 2019, and recommended the board transmit. The board did do a transmittal hearing on April 4th, 2019. So this is your adoption hearing. This is a privately initiated map amendment to the future land use map to designate specific real property from the light industrial land use designation, and it's approximately 30 acres, to the MUC, Mixed Use Community Future Land Use Classification, and to establish a sub-area of R, which is residential. The property is located on the east side of Lakewood Ranch Boulevard, generally north of Woodfern Trail, and approximately a half a mile west of White Eagle Boulevard and a half mile south of Gatewood Drive. This item has received review comments from the state, and there were no objections. The FDOT did have some, what do they call them? Ideas, technical guidelines, right, regarding connectivity and multimodal, and then also maybe expanding bus routes within the area. And this is legislative, and Mrs. Marvin is here to represent Schroeder Manatee.
Come on.
You notice that Margaret and I were nice enough to let all of our junior planning staff go to FPZA while the two of us are here doing the show
Dedicated,
today.
right,
So
dedicated.
they're all down in Key West learning. So.
Key West, and you think they're at the meeting?
Yes, they are.
They're
I'm sure.
snorkeling, having lobster.
Smart.
So, good morning again. For the record, Dorinda Marvin, Senior Planner with Grimes Goebel. I'm not going to do much of a presentation again. It's an adoption hearing, but I just wanted to put up an aerial to give you some perspective of this location. Lakewood Center is one of several DRIs that we have in Lakewood Ranch. It is generally from State Road 64 down to State Road 70, from Lakewood Ranch Boulevard to White Eagle Boulevard. It's about 1,600 acres overall. This parcel is actually part of Lakewood Ranch Commerce Park, which is a non-residential project that was approved maybe even in the late 90s, early 2000s, that has not fully developed. As you can see in the aerial on the left, this parcel of land was really a little bit isolated from the rest of the park, and this is not an up-to-date aerial. Directly to the north is the new Gatewood Business Park, which is about 500,000 square feet of flex space. So it was isolated, and it really contextually relates to Lakewood Center, to the residential development that lies to the east, and we thought this was a piece that made more sense to bring in as residential. So this is the first step of many. This is the map amendment from industrial light to mixed-use community. What you will see in the next, actually a few weeks, I think we'll be back before you on June 20th, is an amendment to Lakewood Center to place entitlements that we already have in Lakewood Center onto this property. So when we've received questions, Rosina and I and Bobby in the Agenda Department have talked to several neighbors. Of course, they're interested in sort of the next piece, and that's always the hard part for all of us when we're looking at a map amendment, is wanting to understand what will come next, because most of those items will be administrative. You will see an amendment to the general development plan. It is already properly zoned, but then any future development of it will be brought forward through the staff. I have had the opportunity with some neighbors to share that site plan so that they can see what's coming forward. You won't necessarily have that benefit at this stage, but we'll be back next month. And again, as Margaret said, we had no objections from any of the agencies, and we're here this morning to ask for your approval of the adoption. Thank you.
Anything to add, Margaret?
No, sir, I'm available if you have any questions.
Okay. Commissioner Ball.
Yeah, just one quick question, and it's not really all that. The neighborhood that you were referring to, is it Bridgewater?
No, I'm actually, the calls that we've been getting are actually from Arbor Grand,
Okay,
which is directly to the east.
right, okay. Mr. Chairman, I know that we need to go to public comment, but I'll just go ahead and make a motion to approve, to adopt the plan amendment PA-18-12/ordinance 19-01 as recommended by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Okay, Betsy?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask one question. So the maximum development, which could developed on this 30 acres, if I'm reading this correctly, is 270 multifamily dwelling units. And then it says the policy limits it to 150,000 square feet. Is that either or combined? I just wasn't sure. I'm reading this on,
Let's say, is that in Rosina's report?
that's under the trip generation. Actually, I'm reading it on DOT's comments. I was reading their comments and I saw that. It says, however, policy 2.10.2.2 table 22 limits the commercial development on the MUC-RFLU to only 150,000 square feet. And I was like, I guess that's
Yeah, I'm sorry, Commissioner Benak. I would guess that would be the interpretation of a medium commercial, because in order for us to get to that next level, that 300, we'd have to be on a principal arterial, and there are probably a lot of other conditions that go along with that. I know we are placing this in the MUC, and you won't see that coming forward, but this is planned for residential development. We will be putting residential on it.
That's kind of what I thought. I wasn't sure how I could ask that question specifically, but I think that's important to know. Thank you. And makes sense. I do have one other question. So is all of Lakewood Ranch pretty much planned at this point? Is there
Manatee
any
County?
major planning
Manatee
changes
County.
coming forward?
Commissioner Benak, the lands that are all entitled only come before you with amendments. I will say we're often making amendments. I have 3 or 4 that are in right now and some that are coming in, and we're making
okay.
some big changes in Sarasota County right now as well. So as we move forward, those properties that have not yet developed, we are, recognizing changes in the market. And I think we talked on this piece, just to give you a little bit, at the Planning Commission about the concept that's coming here. And one of the reasons we thought this was an important piece, it's a new concept coming to Lakewood Ranch that is known as single-family rental. You would have seen in your land development code a change to the definition of multifamily that created a definition of a detached multifamily. So for those of us planners in the room, we're so accustomed to multifamily being 3 to 9 units that are all attached. It's a really promising concept. It's coming to us from Arizona and other places out west, with the idea that, number one, not everybody wants to own a home, and number two, some people that want to rent don't want to be in an apartment on a third-story walk-up. If you wanted to move to Lakewood Ranch today, say, someone my age with children, and I wanted to try it out, come let my children go to the schools. Maybe in that first year, I wanted to rent somewhere, but I didn't want to be in an apartment because that's not my lifestyle. So this is a wonderful first step into the ranch. Someone who desires to be in a single-family home, but on a large project that is maintained all by one owner, as if it is multifamily, but separate structures. So we're very excited to bring that to you. And as I said, the next pieces will be here in June. The staff has been very good with us, bringing us sort of on an accelerated schedule so that that can come forward. And the final site plan is actually already in for review.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing no other commissioners on the board, we will open this up for public comment. Anybody from the public that would like to come down? Yes, ma'am?
Yep, right here, hon.
Please state your name. You have 3 minutes.
Been sworn.
Doesn't have to be.
Eileen Setinary. I'm a resident of Mallory Park, a stone's throw from this projected project. My question is that, I see many young families in my immediate area, and I'm wondering how this rental type unit, how the school situation is factored in terms of the density. And also getting out of Woodfern Trail to make a right or a left into Lakewood Ranch Boulevard is tricky now. It'll only be worse when construction starts and people move into that area. Was that considered?
Address the
Is
school
that-
board, as Mrs. Marvin said in her presentation, the entitlements that are in Lakewood Center, we're not increasing the number of residential units that are proposed. It's using the existing entitlements, and if it were to develop it commercially, the same thing would be true. They have the entitlements already there. Regarding the transportation questions, either Ms. Marvin or
I think I can actually probably speak to the issue. I gotta have that aerial again that was out on the PowerPoint. Yeah, thanks. There we go. One of the things that we looked at, as I said, because we already have a final site plan in for this property, and Woodfern, so you understand, was designed and built as a connection from Lakewood Ranch Boulevard down to relieve the intersection of 44th Avenue and Lakewood Ranch Boulevard. It's sort of a little cut around, so that everyone is not funneling to the intersection of 44th and Lakewood Ranch Boulevard. We looked at providing access to this property from both Woodfern and from Lakewood Ranch Boulevard. As you can see on Lakewood Ranch Boulevard, the majority of that site in the frontage is a wetland. And there's a very narrow portion. What would happen is you would have to come through that intersection and almost immediately turn right in, and the length of that queue would have taken up the entire frontage. So we had some discussions with the staff about, because it is going to be larger than 100 units, where would be providing that access on Woodfern. And so the access to the property will only be from Woodfern. And Ms. Tusing was correct about the schools. As you know, Lakewood Ranch has provided school sites throughout the ranch. We continue to do that in the northeast area where we're developing. And these are entitlements that have been on the books for a long time that the school board would have been accommodating.
Right.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sorry, I pushed my button. So there is a subdivision, call it a subdivision, I assume that is, with lots platted. I don't know, Lakewood Ranch, Vanessa could probably tell me exactly what that is, but to the south, and it looks like a cul-de-sac, dead ends there. So is there any connectivity from that cul-de-sac into this parcel?
And Commissioner Bazak, I apologize, I'm not sure what you're,
Well,
what you can see right now. Is this something
I'm
from the
looking
staff
at the
report?
aerial that's in our staff report, and it is Mallory Park, I guess.
Okay.
And it looks like there's a road that dead ends, looks to me like a cul-de-sac. I just wanted to make sure that there's no possibility that that's going to be extended into this property. Is there right away? Was there
And is
any-
that here, Commissioner Banak?
Sorry.
I think you're talking about Golden Bay Place.
Yes.
Right here.
It shows up, yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Banak, that is part of Mallory Park.
Yeah.
Those are private streets. There is no intended connection there.
So there was no right-of-way required to connect through there?
That's correct.
Okay. That's truly a dead end. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? No? In that case, we have a motion by Commissioner Baugh, seconded by Commissioner Bellamy. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Okay, and we did 14. So I guess we're now down to commissioner comments. Carol?
I just got a couple, a lot of you probably know Dr. Talley, Phil Talley. He has a house on 18th Avenue East, just off of Morgan Johnson, right next to Turner's Landscaping. He's had it for like 30 years now, and he was trying to see about having, because he'd had his daughter's wedding there, and he was wanting to have, others had asked if they could have weddings, so he went to our planning department, and with our new definitions, Margaret, we don't allow banquet venues, and that's under weddings. And, you know, he's a neurosurgeon, so he keeps not wanting to take the no, and he wants to know, is there any way he can come before us and ask about it? I told him I would at least bring it up. And we just had approved this in our changes of the land development code and the definitions. So I told him I at least would bring it up to see if there's any appetite for him to come and to present his case to us.
Okay, I'm gonna ask a question.
And then I got a couple other things after that.
Can I ask Carol a question?
Sure, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So what kind of zoning is this in that
It's
he wants?
A1. It's A1. I looked that up. It's
How
10
many acres does
acres.
he have?
10. He's had it for like 30 years.
I thought the state law precluded us from banning agricultural property to be used for a wedding venue. I thought the state law.
Because I know some people in North County that do it. I've been to a couple weddings.
I thought that there was, maybe it didn't pass, but I know that there was a proposal saying that local governments could not ban agricultural property.
Could not
from
Not banned.
Could not ban it.
Yeah, okay.
Agricultural property from being utilized as a wedding type venue, because this came up, and I thought if I could ask,
Our attorney.
we could ask our attorney if everybody agrees to look
Yeah,
into
could
that.
you research
Well, I
that?
can research it with staff. Staff has to give me some facts first and submit RLS. I don't think the board should be getting into the details of it because this is an administrative matter.
I'll forward the emails to you, the address and everything. Staff already has it.
Open RLS and ask staff to send a file up with it.
Sarah, when you're looking at that, you're going to want to look under agribusiness. Agritourism and agribusiness is where a lot of those are getting.
And I think the staff has given me the facts. If this is a commercial venue for wedding banquets, like a catering business, or it's going to be,
No,
that's different from agricultural use.
No, it's allowing people to have weddings, and I have been to weddings in North County that are very popular. There's a waiting list for years that have
I mean, he'll have to
on
give
ag.
he'll have to send me a letter that says what he tends to do in more detail than that email.
Check out
commercial.
agritourism.
Agritourism. I'll just forward all that and
I
say-
remember reading about this, Sarah. I'm only
Okay.
going from what I read.
Yeah, I know, but we'll have to get facts from staff too.
Thank you, guys. That'll help him. Also, I'm sure you just, this is not land use, but Sheriff Knight's not running. I just saw a press release, and so everybody will be running to Sarasota.
Anybody want to run for sheriff?
Yeah. And also, West Point, my grandson is competing today in Texas on ESPN3, which I can't get, at 7 p.m. for the discus throw. He's in the Nationals. He's representing West Point. But unfortunately, West Point at 6 o'clock this morning had a terrible accident with an armored vehicle. He's in Texas, but, and one officer was killed, one student, cadet, and 10 others were injured. So that just came on our emails, so. Anyway, I just wanted to tell, if anybody gets ESPN3 at 7 p.m., please let me know. His name's Michael Renard.
I think that's online.
You should be able to live stream.
I'm gonna have to do online, I guess, because we tried,
But I thought
cannot
that
get
Live
it.
stream it. You can live stream it, Carol.
Okay,
That's
that's
what I
what we'll
thought
do.
ESPN Plus was.
Pretty sure, anyway.
Okay, that's all I have. Dr. Talley's gonna love you guys, at least if we looked at it. Thank you.
Reggie? Priscilla?
Yeah, I have something that, as y'all know, drainage bothers me immensely, and we're starting to see a lot of infill on properties, much smaller properties, 30 acres, 60 acres, and some of them are designated into the 25-year floodplain. And it concerns me greatly that these people going to move down and think they have a nice dry piece of property, and then it goes to raining in Florida and it's not so dry, And it also concerns me that we can build it up where your house is, and then what does the water do as it goes down? So I'm going to make a motion that I task Tom to get a group together and sometime the first of the year, come back and see if we can make our codes for drainage tighter for these infill projects and in the 25-year flood plan, if it's doable, to look into it. Because it really bothers me that some of this stuff that is being able to be recommended I know this can be a lot of problems down the road.
I'm sorry, Priscilla, would you repeat your motion?
I would like to task Tom, have a committee, whoever he thinks he needs, to look at possibly tightening up our drainage rules, which I guess is a land use, especially in infill areas, other words, smaller areas, and see if there's something we can do to make it safer for these projects, that they can make it tighter. That's it.
Second.
Make rules tighter?
Yeah, and I mentioned to you all before that I had a meeting that all of our staff attended to talk specifically about making stricter stormwater standards. And I asked SwiftMud this is how the meeting came about. I went to the floodplain workshop, and I was talking to them there, and I said, I understand what we're doing, and, we're looking at stormwater, but my question is, do other communities do it different than we do? Do they have stricter standards? And SwiftMud, they basically said we had pretty strict standards because of our 50% reduction. But they also kind of weren't willing, they were saying, yeah, you're meeting our standards. They weren't willing to tell me, and staff at the time about stricter standards. We talked a little bit about LID, and John Osborne was there, and John was taking notes, and I talked to him yesterday, whenever we had the workshop. There's been so many meetings this week, I'm getting a little confused. When we had the workshop, I think on Tuesday, I talked to John and I said, are we going to hear more about this? So I think this is in the works, but I don't like your motion because you tasked one staff person. I don't think any commissioner should task a staff person with something.
I only tasked Tom because Tom is our drainage guy. In other
what
words,
if
I
he
want to
said-
make sure, but I have no problem changing that and not putting Tom as a lead guy, because Tom is going to become the lead guy. So I have no problem with changing the motion, amending the motion to say task staff.
Right, and I would like to see this in a workshop format. I don't think your motion precludes that. So I can go ahead and vote for that, but
That's good.
well, I'm glad you like it, Vanessa.
I do.
That's, I think it's important that we have this discussion in a work session. I still have the floor, I get to talk. That we have this in a work session format, because there was a lot of discussion at that meeting from Chad, from Sia, from all of staff, from Charlie Hunsicker. So I would like to have this discussion, but I agree, we're gonna be asked,
We
what
need-
are our stormwater standards strict enough? And
I've
we
been-
need to be able to answer that. That's what I told
Reason I'm
people
bringing
in the
this
work
motion
session.
now is, A, I didn't think it was that bad of a meeting, so would have time. And B, it's something Tom and I have discussed on multiple, and basically, the only way we can get something done is by saying, staff, get her done. And I don't want it, I said by the first of the year, I don't think this is something he should be doing 30, 90 days, it's important. I have no problem coming back on a work session. I don't know that we can do anything, but it bothers me, there's been 2 projects that have bothered me, that the way the rules, they were approved, and I know that somewhere down the road, they were going to cause this county nothing but problems, the way the rules are written now. And that is what I'm trying to preclude, especially on infill projects, smaller projects. Larger projects you can fix a little bit.
Larger projects are larger problems. That's the only thing I want to make sure that you don't make it just small projects, because that would not make sense to me. So maybe if you took that part out of it, I would appreciate that. I mean, I get it that you think infill causes more problems, but large projects cause large problems.
Well, I understand that when we make a rule, though, that we have to look at it, you can't just take 1 or 2, so you're making the whole rule. I would add to mine to say to look at it and maybe possibly have 2 sets of rules for large and small. I don't know about that. Basically, I want them to study this and come up with something better than what we have now, which would be stricter.
So read it, because it's screwy.
If I can interject just a second. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Trace, and actually all commissioners, a lot of discussion that we've been having, whether it's together or individually, Commissioner Benak, as you brought up, and we've brought up in several briefings with the individual commissioners, a lot of it's boiling down to the coverage, if I understand correctly, the coverage of the 25-year floodplain on some of these projects that Commissioner Trace is bringing up, and that is seriously is a problem of these projects that are coming in, because we are to the point in the county where we are bringing these projects forward where their coverage, and we've had some recent examples of 75%, things of that sort, where there's significant coverage within the 25-year floodplain and things of that sort, to where they are, as far as a design perspective, they are more difficult. But as far as our current county standards, whether it's 1%, 75%, 99%, it's still the same requirement today, whether it's cut fill balance or the requirement for the flow reduction for things of that sort. So certainly on our end, as far as staff, and it would include public works staff, it might even include input from building development services, because we have been discussing as well clustering outside of the 25-year floodplain, things of that sort as well, to look at the county land development code and the public works standards.
Commissioner Ball.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to see this coming forward, Priscilla, because I can tell you I've had conversation with Tom and Sia and others on this very thing. It is an issue. Every time we approve something, I always think about Center Lake. We have got to change some of our rules and how we look at things. And I know that it's been very difficult for staff to be able to move forward and do anything because of what is there and in place at this point. Commissioner Benak, I was not giving you a hard time. I was thanking you for saying you were going to go with the motion, because that gives more presence to it. And, it means a lot coming from you with your background and so forth. And that being said, since you did have a meeting with all of staff on basically this issue, I think it would be great if, I don't know if you had the county attorney's office there, but anyone that was there taking notes, I think it would be great for all individual commissioners to know and have the same information. Because I hadn't heard that, and I would really be interested in what was discussed in that meeting that was held with all of staff. So that being said, I do want to support the motion. I do want to see some changes. you know, we're putting ourselves in some real issues. And I can tell you right now, there are still issues in this county, probably with Center Lake. It's not in my district, but I can tell you there are other neighborhoods that have had these issues, not as bad as Center Lakes. And I can tell you there's some legal action getting ready to take place. The county's involved. I've been in touch with Mickey's office. We need to get a grip on what we're doing here with this situation. So Commissioner Trace, thank you for bringing it up, and I will support that. Well, I second it. Obviously, I'll support it.
One final point, if I could make it, and couldn't agree more with all of the commissioners as far as this as a critical subject. But as far as the timing goes, with us right now speaking about the stormwater utility fee through the work sessions, with a couple watershed studies that we have underway now, that we're to the point where we're going to have a work session here coming up, I'm hoping I'm getting the date right, August 22nd, with respect to Pierce Drain and Bullies Creek, with respect to the various project alternatives that have been provided by the consultants on how to address flooding in those two particular watersheds. And then in the future, obviously, through the budget, we're looking at some items, and then also we're looking at future watershed studies, one for Cowpen Slough out East County, and then basically essentially North County from McMullen Creek down towards Palmetto with Car Drain, and then out east to Slaughter Drain. So there's a lot to come.
It's a lot to cover.
Okay, Commissioner Benak.
Yeah, and I was honestly quite surprised by the amount of staff that came to that meeting. I mean, I asked for the meeting with Swiftmud, and then when I set it up, they said, you know what, staff there? And I said, sure. I didn't designate who to be there, but everybody showed up, which was pretty cool. And
Good.
my book, and John Osborne was there, and I did talk to John, because it occurred to me after the work session that I was talking about it, and y'all were looking at me like, what meeting? I wasn't there. So that's why I asked John to please bring this up to the entire board, and he said he would when we're talking about this. I just want to see if I can clarify. The 25-year floodplain, that is not something that is adopted. That is by study, right? So this board has not adopted it generally, is that true? Mapped it, and I mean, we've mapped it, but and it's best available data is what I recall. And I'm just gonna give a story. It was best available data, and it used to be, and Misty might remember, you couldn't build in it. You were not, the interpretation of the code was if you were in the 25-year floodplain, and it was shown on a map, you couldn't build in it. So I remember, I think I told you guys, I remember arguing, trying to put a volleyball court in the 25-year floodplain on River Reach, when a Neal development, and, you know, it was crazy. You couldn't put a lot in a 25-year floodplain. But that has been changed now by code or interpretation, I don't know which. But 25-year floodplains are generally done by studies and not by FEMA, and they're not adopted by the county. Is that correct?
Commissioner Benek, yes, that is correct. And the first problem is most of our 25-year floodplain studies are decades old.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of that information, especially when we start going through these new watershed studies like we are right now on Pierce and Bullies, the coverage is inaccurate compared to what we have now with those watershed studies. So a lot of this is revolving information. A lot of, as you brought up, the best available information, things of that sort. So as we progress with these watershed studies and the data comes online, we will have better idea and definition, especially not only on the 25-year floodplain, but include those 100-year floodplain delineations on the flood insurance maps through a map amendment, things of that sort. As far as the 25-year floodplain goes, I've always worked on the premise, and I've been with the county for 17 years, of no new habitable structures within the 25-year floodplain, and then we would address the habitable structures through floodplain mitigation. So I think that's where some of that interpretation has come along. But.
Well, and it just needs to be said, when we're talking about new regulations,
yes,
we're talking about the people that in this community, but you're going to hear from the people that build the homes in this community as well.
Yeah.
So we just need to know that, and they have rights, and it's going to be a legal issue, and we need to talk about that. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. But I need to hear the motion before I vote, because, you know, sometimes motions are made, and I talk about how they should change, and I don't know if they do. So I just want to hear how it is before I vote.
Unless you amend it, it won't.
Commissioner Trace.
I was just going to say, there's a lot going on with the Gamble Creek watersheds coming in, and we're going to be building it, and I just think we should have learned from some of our mistakes. And
We make a mistake.
we haven't yet, because we haven't built there yet, but I think we have made mistakes in the past on drainage, that's what I meant. So, and yes, I know when I did this, that a lot of people will not be happy with that, but I think just because if you own a piece of property, I mean, I can think of several in my district that we're close to developing, that if someone ever did develop them, oh, whoa, because the water, people just aren't aware of really how much water in a summer produces. And, I just think we have to look at it and see what our options are. We may not change anything, I don't know, but I think we need at least to have a study and see what we could do to tighten it up. So read the motion, and I can change it if we need to clean it up.
Quintana Acevedo for the clerk's office. The motion on the floor, which was made by Commissioner Trace, is to task staff and committee to look at tightening up drainage standards in infill areas. And the motion was seconded by Commissioner.
I will amend that to just take out the infield areas. In other words, task staff with looking at drainage, whatever.
I second that.
So,
Would you take in committee? Because I don't think that's clear.
yeah, I think, I had said Tom and a committee, so just take out in committee too, so staff.
So noted.
So let's read that back one more time.
So the motion would be for staff to look at tightening up drainage standards in areas.
That's real
Pretty vague.
That's the
That
whole
works.
county. You all right with that?
Sure.
Well, it could be, based on what I heard from Tom, and so it could be a motion to request the county administrator to assign to applicable departments, including but not limited to Public Works and the Building Development Services Department, to perform an analysis of what other drainage standards are practiced by other communities, to examine the swift mud standards, and to report back to the board at a future work session no later than January 2020 on potential amendments to the drainage standards and land development code.
Very good.
And I would just keep it general. I wouldn't limit it to urban infill or the 25-year. And
So moved.
What she said.
She gets paid by the word.
Exactly.
Is this seconded? Is it moved and seconded?
Yes, second, amended.
And this also gives us 6 months to talk and what our concerns are, so that they can look at those. I mean,
And I think if, I'm sorry,
Vanessa.
thank you. I hit my button. And I think the main thing too is to make sure that we leave enough clearance and ability for Tom and staff to really be able to look at this issue and come up with what they feel might be the solutions, if there is one at this point.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Anything else, Priscilla?
no,
You're done?
I think so.
Betsy?
I'm good.
Misty?
Good.
I think we got to vote first.
Oh, no,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have comments. I thought we were voting.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, I guess we have a motion and a second on whatever we're doing.
Hello.
All those in favor of the motion as stated,
Do we have to
Say
do
aye.
public comment before we
Aye.
vote?
okay, and all opposed, no. Is there any public comment? Do this in reverse.
Okay.
Seeing nobody from the public here to comment, we'll close public comment and the motion pass.
And I'm done. Thank you.
Tom has a
Happy
comment.
birthday.
Tom has a comment.
Tom?
Mr. Chair, I will gather up what notes we had taken from that meeting with Swift-Mud with Commissioner Benek and relay it out to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and that, I
Good
guess we're all kind of thinking alike, that this needs to be looked at.
Thanks for calling it.
Any commissioner comments?
I don't think so. Is it your birthday, Priscilla?
It is. We've said it
Happy
3 times.
birthday.
Let's take her to lunch.
Oh, did you guys sing before I got here?
No, she doesn't want us to
No
sing.
singing, there's no singing.
No singing.
Well, happy birthday, Priscilla. That's all I have.
I have a couple
Okay.
things. Are we going down the line here? Okay. So I just want to know, for those of you who did not know, there was a groundbreaking for a new business in the TIF district
No.
called Physical,
We didn't
and that's
know.
FYZICAL, and they have
To
some
my rehab
other
guys.
businesses out in Lakewood Ranch. But really exciting, and just a shout out to Shay Barnett and the staff for the rapid response, efficiency, and the other interesting thing about this project is that it's going to be the first commercial container business.
Oh,
So it's built with, I think, 2 containers put together and some architectural implements, and it's a nice-looking building. So that's exciting.
Mr. Chair, on her, I pushed my button.
I know.
Invitations, who sends these out that we don't get? I mean, it's a lot of times we deny them if we can't, but,
I think that this came
because
out
there's
last
two now,
minute
Robbins
because
Apartments and this.
there were just a couple of hours leeway that I received to be out there for the groundbreaking.
Who sends it?
I got it from Karen.
Oh, okay, maybe if somebody could remember us if we can, because that's our job, is to try to be
If
there.
they want us invited, I mean, I think that's.
Karen Stewart, I don't think
too.
she wouldn't want us there.
No, I'm talking about the business. I'm not just talking
Oh,
about
no.
that one, but sometimes,
They
I
would
mean, I
want
don't
us
get
there.
invites that others get. I didn't get this one.
All right, and then I just wanted to congratulate staff on Cat Town. I know that for those of us that were there, it was just fantastic. What a great build out. What a great facility. And I think we're the first in the state that has a dedicated cat facility. So I was really excited to see that. And finally, I've got to thank Charlie Bishop. We have a meeting every other month with the Pride Park area with a group called SERA. It's the Southeast Residential Association, and that's Ramona Lewis. And we have not had air conditioning in that building, and it was brutally hot.
What building?
There's a building that the county owns that they have given to SERA to use.
Right.
It's on 61st over there in the Pride Park area.
Right by Pride Park.
Very, very hot. The sheriff's department is always there. So I asked Charlie Bishop's office. They were out there, I think, the same day and fixed the AC. So thank you very much for doing that. And that's it.
Vanessa?
Nothing for today, I'll wait.
And our new person up here today, Jeff.
Oh.
So I didn't know who you were.
Fred, didn't see you down there.
John has a
Mr.
plumbing
Goodrich.
problem.
Any comments? Fred, would you?
Fred?
It was great sitting up here.
Okay, we're adjourned.
Reggie goes, who is he?